Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, American Comics, starting with cloning 100,000 liquors. Chapter 41. What Tony Stark said at the press conference was broadcast live on television and spread throughout the United States. This sentence directly caused an uproar in the entire society. Although Stark Industries is much smaller than Umbrella Corporation, it is still a fairly large enterprise. And, in the military industry, it is the absolute number one. The leading company in the military industry actually wants to stop its own military industry. This news is really exciting. But, before Tony could finish speaking, Obadiah Stane rushed up and pulled Tony off the stage. Not only Obadiah Stane, but also Tony's assistant Pepper Potts was confused. She didn't understand what Tony was thinking either. The press conference ended in chaos. But, what follows is not over yet. Because what Tony said at the press conference was not approved by the shareholders meeting. Therefore, it is estimated that Stark Industries will hold a shareholder meeting soon. At that time, Lin Yu will also be invited to participate in the meeting. I have been invited many times before. Every meeting is invited. But at that time, Lin Yu had not yet traveled through time, and the former boss of the umbrella company didn't care at all about the small Stark Industries. I have never attended their shareholder meetings. After all, although Stark Industries is number one in the military industry, their assets are far behind those of Umbrella Corporation. Umbrella Company is number one in the world in the fields of medicine and biology. Moreover, the profits in the pharmaceutical field are completely incomparable to those in the military industry. But, this time, Lin Yu is planning to go support Tony so that he can have more resources to research his steel battle suit technology. Those military industries are incomparable to steel battle suit technology. Really. Minutes after the press conference ended, Alice received a call from Stark Industries. Then, Alice came to Lin Yu's office and told Lin Yu that Stark Industries was going to hold a shareholders meeting. In the past, Alice would not even report such a thing. But something is different now. The careful Alice recently discovered that her boss seems to be very concerned about Stark Industries. "Boss, are you going to attend their shareholders meeting?" Alice asked. Lin Yu nodded slightly and said, "Go, just go and have fun." "When did they say the meeting would be held?" Alice replied, "Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. "Okay, remind me when the time comes," Lin Yu said. "Okay boss, there is one more thing I want to report to you," Alice continued. Lin Yu nodded. Alice said again, "Boss, our artificial intelligence laboratory has made a new major breakthrough. The first generation of artificial intelligence, which was originally expected to be completed in half a year, has been completed ahead of schedule. Dr. Charles asked me to inform you." After hearing Alice's report, Lin Yu was stunned for a moment, and then a look of excitement appeared on his face. Umbrella Corporation has been conducting secret artificial intelligence research. Lin Yu also paid special attention to this department when he inspected the company before. But, unexpectedly, the first generation of artificial intelligence has been completed now. "Come on, let's go take a look." Lin Yu stood up in a hurry and led Alice outside. If we talk about the previous Resident Evil movies, what about Lin Yu Umbrella Company impressed me the most? That is definitely not the T-virus, nor is it the bloody method of the Umbrella Company. But the supercomputer, artificial intelligence, and Red Queen located in the Hive base. Lin Yu even feels that in many aspects, the Red Queen is more advanced than Tony Stark's JARVIS. The existence of JARVIS makes everything Tony does much easier. In his previous life, Lin Yu was very envious. "I never thought that one day I would have my own artificial intelligence, and it would be an artificial intelligence more powerful than JARVIS." A few minutes later, Lin Yu took Alice to a laboratory located in the middle of the Hive. This department is the Intelligent Technology Laboratory of the Umbrella Company. The head of the laboratory is named Charles Ashford. He is also a guy Lin Yu once met in Resident Evil. Charles is a somewhat bald middle-aged man. Wearing a pair of black-rimmed glasses, he looks rather bookish. His legs were necrotic when he was born. He was unable to walk like a normal person and could only sit in a wheelchair all year round. However, without his legs, he can focus more on research. Only then could the Umbrella Company's first-generation artificial intelligence be developed so quickly. Seeing the arrival of his boss, Charles hurriedly and excitedly reported, "Boss, you are lucky to have fulfilled your mission. Our artificial intelligence has finally been completed. We are just waiting for you, boss, to name it." "Okay, I'll give you a credit." Lin Yu laughed and looked very happy. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu and Alice, led by Dr. Charles, came to a huge computer room at the innermost part of the artificial intelligence laboratory. This entire room is filled with computer hosts. If these hosts are run at the same time, computing ability will rank absolutely first in the world. These hosts can actually be regarded as the brains of artificial intelligence. In the center of this computer room is a cylindrical platform. This is the core of Umbrella's first generation of artificial intelligence. It is also its only control platform. The three people came to the front of the platform. Dr. Charles solemnly explained, "Boss, this is the main console. This is the only place where you can perform various operations and shut down it. Now, before it is activated, there are two more something needs to be done. The first one is to name it. The second is to set the highest authority code of conduct for it. These codes of conduct are the most important means of regulating it. At the same time, everything it does in the future will be done in accordance with this code of conduct." After hearing Dr. Charles's introduction, Lin Yu nodded slowly. This matter is indeed quite important. In the previous Resident Evil movie, the artificial intelligence queen's highest code of conduct was to protect all mankind. And he did a lot of weird things because of it. However, Lin Yu doesn't like that code of conduct. Why should we use our own things to protect all mankind? Thinking of this, the corners of Lin Yu's mouth raised slightly. He had already thought about how to set a code of conduct for this artificial intelligence. At this moment, Dr. Charles, who was sitting in a wheelchair, gently pressed a green button. Suddenly, an electronic synthesis sound rang throughout the computer room. "Master, please name me." Electronic synthesis sounds concise and clear. Dr. Charles hurriedly made a gesture to Lin Yu, meaning, "Let Lin Yu name it." Dr. Charles is also quite excited now. After all, this is the artificial intelligence that he finally created after decades of research. This artificial intelligence consumed all his efforts. Coupled with the joint efforts of hundreds of scientific researchers, it was finally completed. Charles is also looking forward to the true capabilities of this artificial intelligence. Lin Yu nodded slowly, and then a smile appeared on his face. "If I were to name it, I would definitely call it that name. Just call her the Red Queen," Lin Yu said calmly. Lin Yu likes this name very much, so there is no need to change it to another name. After hearing Lin Yu's words, the electronic synthesis voice said, recognizing the owner's voice. "Master name, Lin Yu, master identity, Umbrella Company boss, actual controller. Do you want to bind the master identity?" After saying this, Dr. Charles pressed another button on the console. The voice of artificial intelligence also sounded again. "Binding successful. The super artificial intelligence Red Queen serves Master Lin Yu." After the binding was successful, Lin Yu became the only owner of the Red Queen. From then on, the Red Queen will do everything according to Lin Yu's instructions. And constantly grow in learning. Immediately afterwards, the Red Queen said again, "Master, please set the highest code of conduct for me. According to the importance, set it as the first, second, third, and so on, such as 2 codes of conduct. In the event of a conflict, the previous code of conduct shall prevail." Here comes the point. Lin Yu has already thought about it. The Red Queen's code of conduct is like human law. Moreover, it is stricter than the law. All future behaviors of the Red Queen will be restricted by these codes of conduct. It can be said that the code of conduct should be regarded as the most important thing for the Red Queen. Lin Yu showed no hesitation and said, "First, absolutely obey all orders from Master Lin Yu. Article 2. Without receiving the Master's order, all actions shall be based on protecting the Master's life safety and safeguarding the Master's interests. Article 3. Maintain the safety and interests of the Umbrella Company and the core members of the Umbrella Company." Just these 3, no need for the others, Lin Yu said slowly. These are the 3 codes of conduct that Lin Yu has long thought about. Your own artificial intelligence is definitely used to serve yourself. Lin Yu will not be ambiguous on this issue. "Okay, Master, the 3 highest codes of conduct have been entered into the core program of the Red Queen. No one else can change it unless authorized by the Master. Immediately afterwards, the Red Queen said again, whether the Red Queen is fully activated, please give instructions from the Master. Activate it, Lin Yu said lightly. Following Lin Yu's order, all the hosts in the computer room started running. The Red Queen was also instantly connected to the internet from the computer room in front of her. From now on, the Red Queen will be everywhere. Not just the Hive, not just the Umbrella Corporation, but the whole world. As long as there is an internet, the Red Queen will exist. The Red Queen is completely different from JARVIS. JARVIS is more like an assistant who assists Tony, while the Red Queen is more like an independent individual. However, the Red Queen's behavior is all controlled by Lin Yu. At this time, Dr. Charles also handed over a very small micro headset. Boss, after putting on this headset, the Red Queen can contact you at any time, Dr. Charles said. Alice stretched out her hand and took the earphone, and then after Lin Yu agreed, she gently glued the tiny earphone to Lin Yu's ear. From then on, whenever Lin Yu wanted to call the Red Queen, she only had to whisper her name. The affair with the Red Queen came to an end soon. But, from then on, there was a Red Queen in Lin Yu's life who could communicate with Lin Yu at any time and was almost omnipotent. At the beginning, the Red Queen's ability was not fully demonstrated. However, as she constantly learns new knowledge from the internet and Lin Yu, she will understand more and more. It is also more able to adapt to Lin Yu's thoughts and behaviors. In order to better protect the Red Queen's brain, which is the computer host in the entire room, Lin Yu directly ordered Wesker to send people to guard it 24 hours a day. Lin Yu even ordered 2 first-generation hunters to patrol the area. Everything is for the safety of the Red Queen. Definitely, these are the last defensive measures. Even if there is an enemy who really wants to destroy the Red Queen, there is no chance. After all, it's impossible for enemies to sneak into Lin Yu's Hive secret base alone. Early the next morning, Lin Yu put on his coat, had a simple breakfast, and then got into his own car. A black bulletproof extended off-road vehicle. This is the first time Lin Yu has truly stepped out of the Umbrella Company after traveling to this world. It has been more than half a month since I came here, and Lin Yu has always been in the Umbrella Company. Sometimes in the Hive underground base, sometimes in the above-ground headquarters. But he has never been outside. Now, Lin Yu finally came out. As for Lin Yu at the moment, his own strength is already quite strong. On Earth, there are no opponents. Even if the Hulk comes, Lin Yu is not weak at all. Definitely, Lin Yu still cannot withstand many powerful thermal weapons, such as nuclear bombs. But who would throw bombs randomly? Moreover, even if someone really wants to throw bombs, they have to ask the Red Queen if she is willing. Although the Red Queen has not yet grown up, she is already fully capable of penetrating into the military's network. Holding a glass of red wine handed over by Alice and admiring the scenery outside the car, Lin Yu suddenly felt that his current life was really good. Sure enough, only by being strong can you live comfortably in this world. Lin Yu sighed casually, took a sip of red wine, and then handed the cup to Alice. But now is not the time to enjoy it. Lin Yu sighed softly in his heart. Then, she seemed to be talking to herself. Red Queen, can you enter Tony Stark's private network? For Tony Stark, Lin Yu walked out of the Umbrella Company for the first time after traveling to this world. But he wasn't really doing it for Tony Stark. The willingness to attend the shareholders' meeting of Stark Industries is indeed to help Tony Stark. However, Lin Yu's ultimate goal is for the steel battle suit technology in Tony's hands. That's what Lin Yu wants most. In his previous life, after Tony came back, he really put a lot of effort into regaining control of Stark Industries. These messy things have seriously affected the research speed of Tony's steel battle suit. And Lin Yu came out this time just to help Tony Stark clear the obstacles. What Obadiah Stan, what mess of shareholders, Lin Yu is ready to let them all go to hell. Definitely, the premise is that the Red Queen has free access to Tony Stark's private network. And, having to be able to defeat JARVIS online. Only in that way can all of Tony Stark's research be taken for granted. After a few seconds, in Lin Yu's ears, the voice of the Red Queen came. Master, you have entered Tony Stark's private network and found a low-level artificial intelligence in his private network. Do you want to erase him? Hearing what the Red Queen said, Lin Yu hurriedly stopped him and said, No, don't kill it. Just be careful not to be discovered by him. Lin Yu's forehead instantly showed 3 black lines. If Jarvis is killed, Tony will feel uncomfortable. The Red Queen has just been born and needs to learn many things constantly. Perhaps it won't be long before her work habits will gradually become consistent with Lin Yu's under the influence of Lin Yu. Okay, Master, the Red Queen also replied. In the car, Alice was not surprised at all by the conversation between Lin Yu and the Red Queen. Now, in the entire Umbrella Company, only she and Dr. Charles know about the Red Queen. An hour later, Lin Yu's car has arrived in the center of New York City, underneath the Stark Industrial Building. Before Lin Yu got out of the car, he saw a bald man with a big beard greeting him in front of the Stark Industrial Building with a smile. Lin Yu naturally knows this guy. Obadiah Stane, originally the second largest shareholder of Stark Industrial Group, now the third largest shareholder. Back then, he was also the one who assisted Tony's father, Edward, in making Stark Industries bigger. Obadiah Stane is considered to be the oldest group of veterans of Stark Industries. So, because of this, he was very dissatisfied with Tony, a somewhat arrogant guy. It was he who proposed this shareholders' meeting. The purpose is to deprive Tony of his position as CEO. Lin Yu's car slowly stopped. Obadiah Stane politely reached out to help Lin Yu open the car door. Seeing Lin Yu get out of the car, he stretched out his hands and said, Hello, Mr. Lin, you are welcome to come. 2 bald men shook hands with each other. It seems absurd. But, the 2 of them seemed unaware. After a few pleasantries, Lin Yu and Alice came to a conference room on the upper floor of Stark Industrial Building, led by Obadiah Stane. This conference room is luxuriously decorated and of high standard. It is usually only used to hold shareholders' meetings. And at the moment, there were already 7 or 8 people sitting in the conference room. These people are all shareholders of Stark Industries. And the top position has been reserved for Lin Yu. Although this was Lin Yu's first time attending Stark Industries' shareholder meeting, they were still in awe of Lin Yu's presence. After all, Umbrella Corporation is much more powerful than Stark Industries. Moreover, Lin Yu is now the second largest shareholder of Stark Industries. It's natural to sit in the top position. Lin Yu sat down on that seat without any politeness. Alice, on the other hand, stood behind Lin Yu. All shareholders attended this meeting alone, except Lin Yu with his assistant. However, no one dared to say anything. Obadiah Stane also sat in the first position under Lin Yu's right hand. The entire conference room suddenly became quiet. Seeing that Lin Yu didn't seem to be ready to speak first, Obadiah Stane coughed twice, and then said, Since Mr. Lin is already here, I will report to Mr. Lin the topics of this meeting. After speaking, Obadiah Stane turned his head and glanced at Lin Yu, his eyes seemed to be asking. Lin Yu did not refuse and nodded lightly. The topic of this meeting is mainly about Tony. His escape from the terrorists is indeed a great joy. As his uncle, I am also very happy for him. However, Tony doesn't know where he went wrong. The first thing he did after coming back was to stop Stark Industries' military industry. It's like child's play. The military industry accounts for 100% of our company's revenue. It's more than 80%. If we stop, then we are not far from bankruptcy. So, I propose to remove Tony Stark as CEO through a vote at our shareholders' meeting. In addition, elect a new CEO. While Obadiah Stane was speaking, he was always observing Lin Yu's face. In this conference room, only Lin Yu was beyond his control. The other small shareholders have actually been bought out by him a long time ago. To pass this resolution, Lin Yu is crucial. To this end, Obadiah Stane prepared several emergency plans. No matter how soft or hard it is, Lin Yu must agree to this resolution. Obadiah Stane finally finished his opinion. All the shareholders present, except Lin Yu, nodded slowly. It seems that I strongly agree with this resolution. At this moment, however, Lin Yu's face was still very calm, and there was no trace of any thoughts at all. Obadiah Stane could only bite the bullet and said, Well, let's vote now with a show of hands. Those who agree with the resolution of removing Tony Stark as CEO, please raise your hands. After Obadiah Stane finished speaking, all the small shareholders in the conference room raised their hands. Obadiah Stane also raised his hand. And at the moment, all eyes were turned to Lin Yu, who was sitting at the front of the conference table. Just when all the shareholders in the conference room looked at Lin Yu, a voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. I disagree. Tony Stark actually pushed open the door and entered. I don't know where he learned that Obadiah Stane was organizing a shareholders meeting, and then rushed in directly. Tony's face looked ugly. He did not expect that Obadiah Stane would dare to do this openly. When he learned the news, he was so angry. You have no right to do this. Stark Industries was founded by my father, and its name is Stark. After Tony entered the door, he continued to yell. But then, his expression changed. Because, on the conference table, he actually saw Lin Yu. What's the situation? Why is Lin Yu, the big boss of the umbrella company, here? Tony Stark suddenly felt hesitation in his heart. When I was chatting with Lin Yu that day, the other party clearly agreed with my opinion. However, he came here again. Could it be that he was perfunctory that day? Tony Stark himself also knows that if the military industry of Stark Industries is shut down, it will be a heavy blow to the entire Stark Industries. Those shareholders will definitely spend a lot of money with them. Lin Yu, the second largest shareholder, will lose more. The reason why Tony chatted with Lin Yu before was because he knew that Lin Yu had huge assets and he probably didn't care much about the income brought to him by his share of Stark Industries. Could it be that I am overthinking it? He also cares about the money. For a moment, Tony frowned and calmed down instantly. For everyone else, Tony didn't care. Even if it was Obadiah Stane, he didn't care. However, if these shareholders and Obadiah Stane have the support of Lin Yu, then I am afraid that I will be in real trouble, and there is a high possibility that I will be kicked out. And at the moment, Obadiah Stane finally stood up, with a serious face, and said, Tony, the resolution to be voted on at this shareholders meeting is to kick you out, so you don't need to participate. Before Tony could say anything, Obadiah Stane looked at Lin Yu again, and his expression instantly became respectful. Mr. Lin, you haven't voted yet. Obadiah Stane looked at Lin Yu expectantly. Although he is not very familiar with Lin Yu, judging from Lin Yu's previous performance, it seems that he is not very disgusted with the removal of Tony. That's fun. After Obadiah Stane asked, everyone in the conference room turned their eyes to Lin Yu, who was sitting in the front. Everyone's eyes were full of expectation. Lin Yu's decision will affect the future of Stark Industries. It matters a lot to everyone here. And at the moment, Lin Yu had a smile on his face. Lin Yu suddenly turned his head, looked at Tony Stark who was standing in the direction of the conference room door, and said slowly, I don't agree. Moment. There was an uproar. All the shareholders stood up from their seats. His expression changed drastically. Only Tony Stark had a look of surprise on his face for a moment. Sure enough, Mr. Lin is a man of his word. Mr. Lin, are you going to stop thinking about it? Do you know that Tony's decision will plunge Stark Industries into an irreversible situation? Obadiah Stane said to Lin Yu with a solemn expression. He didn't want to use other means unless it was absolutely necessary. After all, using other means is not very safe. Lin Yu's identity is, after all, no ordinary person. If you mess up, you will face even greater trouble. Lin Yu still looked calm, turned his head, looked at Obadiah Stane, and said slowly, Stark Industry is in ruins. What does it have to do with me? Did I miss this little money? As soon as Lin Yu's words came out, the entire conference room suddenly became quiet again. You can hear a pin drop. Following Lin Yu's words, they finally remembered something. The assets of Umbrella Corporation are at least dozens of times that of Stark Industries. And, the scariest thing is that the Umbrella Company is not a listed company. All assets are the personal property of the bald man in front of me. He really doesn't like the money from Stark Industries. All the shareholders looked ugly. Especially Obadiah Stane. The anger on his face seemed like he could no longer hold it in. He snorted lightly, and then a trace of madness appeared on his face. Lin Yu, if you're to blame, blame yourself for being too careless. You dared to come here with a female secretary. After speaking, Obadiah Stane clapped his hands gently. Suddenly, the door to the conference room was pushed open again. 7 or 8 guys dressed in black, with sturdy backs and waists, filed in. In an instant, the atmosphere in the entire conference room became tense. Even the small shareholders had a hint of fear in their eyes. They didn't know what these men in black were here to do. Moreover, some sharp-eyed small shareholders even saw the pistols vaguely exposed from the waists of the men in black. They came prepared. The man in black seemed to have been prepared. After arriving in the conference room, he immediately divided into 2 waves. One wave came behind Lin Yu, and the other wave surrounded Tony Stark. At this time, Tony also recalled the words Lin Yu reminded him when he parted with Lin Yu that day. It seems that Obadiah Stane does have a problem. But Tony rushed in after hearing the news, but he didn't make any preparations in advance. Facing 4 strong men in black, he had no choice. Now, he has not yet successfully developed the Mark II steel battle suit, so naturally he cannot be the opponent of these men in black. Tony could only look at Lin Yu, who was sitting at the front of the conference table, still calm and composed. As the big boss of the umbrella company, someone like Lin Yu shouldn't be unprepared, right? Especially when Tony saw that even the little secretary behind Lin Yu had no expression on his face. He already understood that his uncle seemed to underestimate the big boss of the umbrella company. And at the moment, Lin Yu finally stood up from his seat slowly. And a strange smile appeared on his face. He said to Obadiah Stane, "Are you sure you want to be tough with me?" Both Lin Yu and Alice behind him seemed a little calm. It seemed that the men in black did not have any deterrent effect on them. Immediately afterwards, Obadiah Stane seemed to have finally discovered this. But at the moment, he had no way out. Having already used such methods, it is obvious that there is no way to resolve this problem peacefully. And, even now, Lin Yu agreed to his decision under his own coercion. From then on, Lin Yu will also become his enemy. However, Obadiah Stane had already been prepared. If he is an enemy, let him disappear. Although you can't do this at Stark Industries headquarters, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Obadiah Stane was quite good at doing this kind of thing. "Are you sure you want something hard?" Lin Yu said slowly. Obadiah Stane narrowed his eyes when he heard this. "Since there is no way out, then simply stop covering yourself up. I don't care what your identity is, you must agree even if you don't agree today, otherwise, don't even think about going out like this," Obadiah Stane said fiercely, completely different from his previous polite appearance. Immediately afterwards, before Lin Yu could speak, Obadiah Stane said again, "I have asked people to clear this floor. We are the only ones here now, and I have blocked all signals. Even if you die here, you will not. Does anyone know?" Obadiah Stane had already made complete preparations, so he dared to use force against Lin Yu. Then, Obadiah Stane took out a document directly from the computer bag in front of him. He threw it casually in front of Lin Yu. "Since you have already used force, let the evil ones do it to the end. Sign this document and transfer all shares of Stark Industries to me. Then you can go back and be the boss of your umbrella company. Otherwise," Obadiah Stane showed his fierce look. Although he didn't finish what he said, the meaning was already obvious. At this moment, it seemed that the protagonist in the entire conference room became Obadiah Stane again. Lin Yu and Tony have become supporting roles. At the moment, just after Obadiah Stane said these words, the men in black surrounding Lin Yu and Tony Stark all put their hands on the handles of the pistols at their waists. As long as the 2 of them make any unnecessary movements, they will react instantly. Everything seems to be safe. Obadiah Stane also showed a confident smile on his face. But, at this time, Lin Yu's reaction made everyone confused. Lin Yu winked at Alice behind him, and then Alice actually took out a contract. Then, he gently placed it in front of Obadiah Stane with a smile. "This is an equity transfer agreement. If you sign, I will spare your life," Lin Yu said slowly. His voice was calm, as if he was chatting away from home. But this scene completely angered Obadiah Stane. In the current situation, it is obvious that he has absolute control. This guy is really ignorant. "You are looking for death." Obadiah Stane was furious. He picked up the agreement in front of him and tore it into pieces. Then, he said to the men in black, "Give them some color and kill that woman." Obadiah Stane is finally ready to take action. After he gave the order, the 4 men in black behind Lin Yu also moved quickly. They took out their pistols and pointed them at Alice. The pistols all had silencers on them, so they were obviously prepared. But, when they just took out their pistols, Lin Yu had already put away the smile on his face. Suddenly, in the conference room, a dark green shadow suddenly flashed across. A gust of breeze suddenly crossed everyone's faces. It was like something was passing by quickly in the conference room. When I saw that dark green, the person who was most frightened was actually Tony Stark. He instantly recalled the scene he saw in the terrorist base. Those headless corpses, the blood on the ground, and that cold monster. Lin Yu actually brought that monster here. Cold sweat broke out on Tony's forehead. On the way to Stark Industrial Group, Lin Yu had already decided to use predators to scare those guys. Although the hunter is one of the trump cards of the Umbrella Company. However, it is not Lin Yu's strongest trump card. And, sooner or later, predators, like lickers, will be exposed to the public eye. It's actually not a big deal if people find out earlier. In comparison, Lin Yu's other 2 trump cards, the Red Queen, and Lin Yu's own strength are the things Lin Yu doesn't want to expose. Everyone in the conference room suddenly smelled a smell of blood. It seemed that the breeze just now carried the smell of blood from nowhere. But then, everyone knew where this bloody smell came from. A man in black who had just pulled out a pistol suddenly stopped where he was. It seems like time has stopped. Immediately afterwards, in everyone's eyes, the arm of the man in black holding the pistol suddenly broke off at the wrist. It was like something extremely sharp swiped across his wrist in an instant. But, this is not the end. When his hand and the pistol he held fell from midair, a red mark suddenly appeared on his neck. Then, everyone was stunned by the sight in front of them. The head of the man in black who was closest to Alice slowly slipped off his neck. Before his hand fell to the ground, it began to fall slowly. There was a hint of ferocity on his face. It seemed like he was just getting ready to shoot. He didn't even feel any pain. The pain of his broken wrist seemed to have separated from his body before it reached his brain through the nerves. Boom! The head of the man in black fell to the floor with a thud. Then, dong dong, the head bounced twice on the ground and made 2 more thumping sounds. These sounds seemed to hit everyone's hearts, making everyone's hearts beat violently. Just when these people looked at the man in black, several more, dong dong dong, sounds reached their ears. They all rolled their stiff necks and eyes. Immediately afterwards, they saw a scene that they would never forget. In the conference room, the heads of a total of 8 men in black fell to the ground. Their bodies still stood in place, as if the support of their bodies and legs was still there. But, all the heads have rolled off. Blood spurted out crazily from their necks, like 8 bright red fountains. In the conference room, a breeze blew again. The 8 headless corpses finally fell slowly. And the breeze finally stopped. A dark green figure stood quietly behind Lin Yu, looking at everyone in the office with cold eyes. Lin Yu suddenly frowned, because he suddenly smelled a strange smell in the conference room. I don't know which shareholder he was, but he was so frightened that he peed his pants, exuding a strong smell of urine. The room was quiet, except for Lin Yu. Everyone else had the same expression. His eyes were widened, his mouth was slightly open, and his chest was rising and falling rapidly. It seemed that the scene in front of me was like hell. Even Tony Stark, who saw this scene for the second time, almost collapsed to the ground. Compared with last time, this time it looked even more shocking. After all, this is the Stark Industrial Building, and it's his own territory. The whole room was filled only with the smell of blood and urine. No one dared to make even a sound. At this moment, Alice, who was behind Lin Yu, seemed to notice something was wrong with her boss's expression. She also frowned slightly, then slowly walked to the window of the conference room and opened it. A gentle breeze blew. The smell in the air finally slowly dissipated. Lin Yu's frown slowly calmed down. After glancing at the sensible Alice, Lin Yu turned his head and looked at Obadiah Stane at the conference table again. "How are you doing? Do you want to be hard again?" Lin Yu asked calmly, as casually as asking if he had breakfast. But Obadiah Stane, however, could no longer remain calm. He finally realized that he had really done something wrong. The purpose of killing Lin Yu's assistant just now was just to scare Lin Yu. He wouldn't dare kill someone in broad daylight. Even if he kills, he still has to do it secretly. But Lin Yu is different. Not only did he kill people in broad daylight, he also killed 8 at the same time. What's even more terrifying is that the extremely ferocious-looking monster behind him can almost scare an adult into fainting just by looking at it. It seemed that it only took 2 seconds for the monster to chop off the heads of 8 men in black. He is a complete killing machine. No, it's impossible for a killing machine to kill so fast. That thing is the devil. Previously, Obadiah Stan thought that Stark Industries was a military-industrial enterprise after all. Although it was smaller than Umbrella Corporation, it should be better at combat than Umbrella Corporation. Moreover, Obadiah Stan has also specially trained a lot of armed forces to deal with some things that cannot be dealt with money. These men in black are his personal weapons. But he didn't expect that compared to the Umbrella Company, what he was playing with was simply child's play. The Umbrella Company is the real boss. They actually directly cultivated a monster. Seeing this monster, Obadiah Stan suddenly thought of the hordes of monsters that appeared in New York before. He suddenly understood that those monsters should also be from the Umbrella Company. Only Umbrella Company has this kind of technology and financial strength. I want to sign the equity transfer agreement just now. Obadiah Stan stammered. He hurriedly scratched the table with his hands, trying to put the pieces back together. However, he tore it up a little hard just now, and all that agreement has been turned into crumbs. After a few seconds, Obadiah Stan finally raised his head again. Facing Lin Yu, he begged, Mr. Lin, do you have any other agreements? Obadiah Stan, a man in his 50s, had a cry in his voice. However, Lin Yu's answer directly made his mood fall into an icy abyss. Sorry, I just brought one, Lin Yu said calmly. After Lin Yu finished speaking, immediately afterwards, the first-generation hunter behind Lin Yu once again turned into a dark green afterimage. A cold light suddenly appeared. Obadiah Stan's 2 arms suddenly separated from his body. Blood spurted out wildly. Obadiah Stan also fainted from the severe pain that followed. Lin Yu did not kill Obadiah Stan. After cutting off Obadiah Stan's 2 arms, the dark green figure suddenly flashed a blue light and disappeared into the conference room. Disappeared quietly, as if it had never appeared. And this time, Lin Yu glanced at the frightened small shareholders, and then slowly came to Tony. Lin Yu stretched out a hand, patted Tony's shoulder gently, and said, Look, I have helped you deal with the biggest obstacle. I hope you can put Stark Industries on the right track in the future. Looking at Lin Yu's sincere eyes, Tony nodded stiffly. And at the moment, Lin Yu suddenly turned his head, glanced at the trembling small shareholders at the conference table again, and said, You should be able to assist Tony well, right? Hearing Lin Yu's words, all the small shareholders nodded hurriedly, like rattles. How dare they have any evil thoughts now? As long as Lin Yu doesn't let the terrifying monster chop off their heads, they will do anything they want without hesitation's consent. Not to mention assisting Tony, no one would dare to object even if he was working as a bully for Tony. Seeing that everything was settled, Lin Yu smiled at Tony and walked towards the door of the conference room. Alice followed closely behind. Opening the door and just taking one leg out, Lin Yu suddenly turned around and said to Tony, By the way, what happened here shouldn't be spread out, right? The small shareholders in the conference room were so frightened that they all shook their heads in a hurry. And Tony seemed to have finally recovered from the fear just now. He nodded solemnly, and then said slowly, Don't worry, not a word will be spread. After going through all this, Tony seems to have grown a lot. Only when you are used to seeing blood can you adapt to it faster. Lin Yu's special car, Alice asked weakly. Boss, why didn't you kill that hateful guy just now? Alice was talking about Obadiah Stan. Alice was very dissatisfied with this guy who was yelling in front of her boss. If she had her way, she should cut this guy into pieces. However, Lin Yu only cut off his arms. This punishment is too light. However, Lin Yu laughed and didn't care. Let's leave this guy to Tony himself. After all, he is his uncle, Lin Yu said with a smile. Alice doesn't quite believe that Tony would kill anyone. It seems like Tony Stark is a fool. This may be because she follows Lin Yu all day long, so she naturally compares Tony with her boss. After all, this is just the early days of Marvel, and Tony has just begun to transform from a playboy to a superhero. During this period, he did look a little silly. Will he kill that guy? Alice asked doubtfully. Lin Yu raised his shoulders and said, it doesn't matter whether he kills him or not. Definitely, even if he doesn't kill him, he won't be stupid enough to give Obadiah Stan a chance to stand up again. Definitely. There is one more thing Lin Yu didn't say. Even in the previous Marvel movies, Obadiah Stan only had a small role. Even if he was allowed to develop, Lin Yu would not like him at all. The difference in strength is too great. It's not on the same level at all. A few days later, Raccoon City, Umbrella Corporation Hive underground base. Lin Yu is watching a piece of news. In the news footage, Tony Stark's good friend Colonel Rhodes is speaking at a press conference. During a military exercise, one of our fighter jets crashed, but fortunately the pilot bailed out in time and his life was not in danger. The picture in the news is very familiar to Lin Yu. It was the scene where Iron Man accidentally crashed a military fighter jet after his first flight, and the military held a press conference. And at the moment, Tony Stark has basically perfected all functions of Mark II. Looking at the picture on the screen, Lin Yu said softly, Red Queen, copy all the steel battle suit technical information from Tony Stark's private network, and be careful not to alert Jarvis. Okay, boss. The Red Queen's voice also came to Lin Yu's ears. After arranging the Red Queen, Lin Yu also walked out of his office. He called Alice and walked towards a special department in the Hive. This department is actually not special when it comes to Stark Industries. Because the name of this department is called the Weapons Research and Development Department. The Umbrella Company is best at biotechnology and cloning technology, but it has never been weapons research and development. So, although there is this department in the Hive, they have never been taken seriously. It seems that its only function is to make some simple firearms and individual combat equipment. Moreover, there are not many. After all, it is simply used to arm the armed forces of the Umbrella Company. Definitely, even if it is not taken seriously, it does not mean that this department is not strong. But in the Hive's secret base, there are too many powerful departments. Such as cloning laboratories, such as artificial intelligence laboratories. Under the influence of the strong aura of these departments, the Weapons Research and Development Department will appear a little weak. A few minutes later, Lin Yu finally took Alice to this department called the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory. When Lin Yu walked into the laboratory, he immediately attracted great attention from the scientific researchers in the laboratory. They didn't expect that the big boss came in person. The person in charge of the laboratory, Abigail, hurried over. Abigail is a woman with short hair and looks quite capable. After meeting Lin Yu, her eyes showed extreme excitement. Although she has a mind and level almost as good as Tony Stark, she has never had much room to play in the Umbrella Company. Moreover, compared to other laboratories, this Weapons Research and Development Laboratory receives far less resource support. Abigail was naturally very excited to see Lin Yu coming here in person. Boss, why are you here? Abigail rubbed her hands and said with a smile. Lin Yu also came here once just after traveling through time. However, that time it was just a formality, and I visited the door for a while before leaving. But this time it was different. He took Alice directly into the laboratory, and it was obvious that something was wrong. Lin Yu smiled slightly and said, I have a task for you. Abigail became even more excited when she heard there was a mission. As long as you have work to do, it means that your boss values you. Moreover, the boss personally handed over the tasks, which is great news. What kind of mission, boss? We are so busy here, we need to work day and night to get us all excited. Abigail did not hide her inner ecstasy. In an Umbrella Company, you can only be taken seriously if you are assigned tasks by your boss. Only then can we have endless resources, we can do whatever we want, and we can study whatever we want to study. For them, the boss's mission is the greatest favor. Seeing Abigail's anxious look, Lin Yu smiled slightly, and then said, I have the technical information of a steel battle suit here. You can take your people to study it. The ultimate goal is that you need to develop something that can to match the steel armor of those biochemical creatures, at least give them the ability to fly and survive in outer space. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu said, Red Queen, please cooperate with them and help Abigail complete this task. After arranging the arrangements, Lin Yu looked at Alice again and said, Alice, allocate resources to the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory and provide full support at all costs. We must ensure the progress of the steel battle suit research and development. 3 orders in a row made Abigail's blood boil. Especially when Lin Yu said she would give her full support at any cost, her eyes simply lit up. My own weapons research and development laboratory is finally taking off. At this time, Lin Yu turned his head, looked at Abigail again, and said slowly, if there is new information, the Red Queen will send it to you at any time, but the most important thing is your own efforts, don't let me down. SHIELD Headquarters. Director's Office. Nick Fury has been obviously tired lately. Sitting on the chair in the office, he looked at the information handed to him by Phil Coulson with a sad look on his face. In the information, a list is displayed. The people on the list involve almost all departments of SHIELD. These are the members who Phil Coulson recently discovered through investigation and are suspected to be Hydra spies. Although it is only a one-sided investigation and has not yet been determined, Nick Fury still feels a little overwhelmed when he sees this list. If all these people were arrested, SHIELD would be almost paralyzed. Moreover, whether it can be caught is still a question. After all, there are too many people. Phil Coulson stood in front of Nick Fury's desk, his expression not very good. The deeper he investigated, the more frightened he became. Throughout SHIELD, he knew who to trust. Nick Fury and Phil Coulson looked at each other and nodded at the same time. The two got up, went to the underground garage, and then got into Nick Fury's car. The vehicle started and drove away from the SHIELD headquarters building. Soon, Nick Fury drove the vehicle and came to a tunnel. At this moment, Nick Fury and Phil Coulson can finally talk about Hydra. They were afraid to talk about it in Nick Fury's office. After all, they don't know if there will be Hydra monitoring equipment in the office. Nick Fury's car is much safer. Moreover, in the tunnel, even if there is monitoring, no signal can be transmitted. Has anyone discovered your investigation? Nick Fury asked first. What he is most worried about now is another problem. That is, if the investigation between myself and Phil Coulson is discovered by Hydra in advance, will they launch an attack in advance? If they get there first, then the entire SHIELD will probably be doomed. Phil Coulson shook his head and said, no one should find out. All my investigations are conducted secretly without anyone else. Nick Fury frowned deeply and said, there are too many people on this list, and they are in various departments. Can you confirm the identities of these people? Phil Coulson slowly shook his head again. He didn't say anything, but his meaning was obvious. It is impossible for one person to investigate everything in such a short time. The people on this list are also suspected of being Hydra. It's simply impossible to know for sure. The car fell into silence again. It seemed that both of them were at a loss what to do. At this moment, Phil Coulson suddenly said again, Director, do you think Lin Yu, the big boss of the umbrella company, knows some secrets that we don't know? Lin Yu originally told them about Hydra. Moreover, the names of 2 people were directly mentioned. Phil Coulson felt that Lin Yu must know more, but he just didn't say it that day. After hearing Phil Coulson's words, Nick Fury's eyes lit up slightly. But then, it dimmed again. He must know other secrets, but... Nick Fury hesitated for a while and continued, he may not necessarily help us. The strength of the umbrella company is definitely not as simple as it seems on the surface. SHIELD should not have what he needs, so it is difficult to ask him for help. Nick Fury has actually thought about this problem for a long time. In this situation, SHIELD is simply riding a tiger. To alert the enemy is to seek death, but if you do nothing, you can only watch Hydra gradually eroding SHIELD, and even eventually turn all SHIELD into Hydra. It seems that the only person who can help him get through this difficulty is the boss of the umbrella company, who is powerful and knows some secrets that he doesn't know. But why should he help himself? After all, I had sent people to investigate the umbrella company before. Although we had a good chat that day, we can't be considered friends yet. In Nick Fury's car, the two fell into silence again. They were completely at their wits' end against these all-pervasive Hydra. Finally, Nick Fury sighed slightly and said, "Continue the secret investigation, I will think of a solution." Immediately afterwards, Phil Coulson reported to Nick Fury on some other tasks. For example, someone found the frozen body of the captain of the United States in the Arctic glacier. Phil Coulson has sent people to the Arctic to collect it. There's also something about Stark Industries. But, compared with Hydra, Nick Fury is obviously not in the mood to care about these messy things. Umbrella Corporation Hive Underground Base. After arranging the tasks in the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory, Lin Yu was obviously in a good mood. I took Alice to wander around the various laboratories in the base again. When he walked to a corner and saw a very small laboratory, Lin Yu suddenly became interested. The last time he went shopping, he didn't find this small laboratory hidden in the corner. Seeing Lin Yu stopping in front of the laboratory, Alice hurriedly introduced, "Boss, this laboratory is the smallest laboratory in our base. There is only one person. Her research direction is viruses, but there has never been any what results have been achieved, so no one usually pays attention to this place. This virus laboratory is smaller than the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory. There is only one person. Lin Yu usually only pays attention to those big laboratories, and has never even been to this virus laboratory." Therefore, Alice hurriedly introduced. But, after listening to Alice's introduction, Lin Yu's eyes became brighter and brighter. "I have always wondered, how could the Umbrella Company not have a laboratory to research viruses?" Lin Yu was previously afraid of revealing his identity as a time traveler, so he didn't dare to ask. "After walking around the Hive base, I didn't find this laboratory. I thought that this Umbrella Company was completely different from the one I knew. Now it turns out that it was hidden too deeply, and there didn't seem to be any great research results." "What's the name of the person in charge of this laboratory?" Lin Yu asked. Alice recalled it briefly, and then said, "It seems that her name is Alexia. She doesn't come out very often. She locks herself in the laboratory all day long, so few people know her." Hearing this name, Lin Yu's eyes lit up again. Alexia. This name is very familiar to Lin Yu. In the previous Resident Evil movies and games, she was the most talented virus research scientist at Umbrella Company. It was also she who discovered the Veronica virus. Although this virus has great flaws, it is also very powerful. But, just when Lin Yu was about to take Alice to see Alexia and her virus laboratory, in Lin Yu's mind, a system prompt suddenly sounded. "Ding, it has been detected that the gene for the most powerful human being has appeared in the Arctic. Please go to the host to get it as soon as possible. The strength of this gene is very high. Please pay attention to it. The ultimate human being, Arctic." In an instant, Lin Yu, who heard the system prompts, knew who the gene came from this time. It is clear, the captain of the United States, who had been frozen for more than 70 years, was finally found. "Red Queen, check if there is any news about Steve, the captain of the United States, in the North Pole." Lin Yu said hurriedly to the Red Queen. After a few seconds, the Red Queen's voice reached Lin Yu's ears. "Boss, under the Arctic glacier, a team of explorers discovered the frozen body of Captain Steve of the United States and notified the United States government. Now Steve's body is under the protection of S.H.I.E.L.D. and is preparing to be transported to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters." Already in the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D. Lin Yu was slightly stunned. Unexpectedly, S.H.I.E.L.D. still has time to take care of this matter. Shouldn't they be too busy to take care of themselves? What Lin Yu didn't know was that Nick Fury was really busy with himself, but in order not to alert others, all work of S.H.I.E.L.D. was still going on as normal. What makes it uncomfortable is that Nick Fury and Phil Coulson are the only two people with knowledge of S.H.I.E.L.D. "Alice, help me dial Nick Fury's number," Lin Yu ordered lightly. "After all, we had a good chat with Nick Fury, and we can't break up with S.H.I.E.L.D. again just because of the United States captain's genes. And, the United States captain's genes can be solved with a phone call, so why waste time?" Raising his head and taking another deep look at the virus laboratory in front of him, Lin Yu turned around and left with Alice. "After we get the genes of the captain of the United States, let's take a closer look at this virus laboratory," Lin Yu thought to himself. Lin Yu still has high expectations for the virus laboratory and Alexia, the head of the virus laboratory. although I haven't seen him in person yet. However, how could Umbrella Company's virus research be weak? At the very least, it should be similar to a cloning laboratory. Although there is only one person now and it is so inconspicuous, Lin Yu feels that it must not have reached the outbreak period yet. After the T-virus appears, it will be truly invincible. And now Alice, Wesker and others are just ordinary people. It doesn't have the Superman-like strength in previous movies. However, if there is a T-virus, it will be different. Lin Yu couldn't help but feel more and more excited. But now, let's get the genes of the Captain of the United States first. The system has reminded me that the Captain of the United States has very strong genes. Lin Yu will naturally not miss it. A few minutes later, Nick Fury's phone finally got through. It seems that some signals were not very good just now. As soon as the call was connected, Nick Fury's slightly excited voice came from the phone. "Mr. Lin, why do you have time to call me?" Lin Yu noticed that the old guy Nick Fury actually used an honorific title for himself. Could it be that he has something to ask of himself? Lin Yu thought about the reason as soon as his brain turned around. Lin Yu chuckled and said straight to the point, "I have something I want to ask Director Nick Fury for help with." Lin Yu doesn't like to mince words, and when dealing with smart people like Nick Fury, there's no need to talk nonsense. Really, Nick Fury became even more excited when he heard Lin Yu ask him for help. Before asking anything, he just said, "Mr. Lin, if you have any questions, just ask me. As long as I can help, I will do my best." Nick Fury is now eager for Lin Yu to ask him for help. If I can help Lin Yu, then can I also ask Lin Yu for help? Lin Yu smiled slightly, as if he had expected the positive interaction with Nick Fury. "I heard that your shield got the body of Captain Steve of the United States in the Arctic. I hope to borrow it for a few days. This kind of body that has been frozen for 70 years will be very useful for our research on many anti-aging drugs," Lin Yu said slowly. This reason can be considered quite satisfactory. Absolutely, Nick Fury doesn't care what the reason is. He didn't know that the Captain of the United States was still alive. He thought the Captain of the United States was just a corpse. Moreover, even if he knew that the Captain of the United States was still alive, it would be worth using him in exchange for the help of the Umbrella Company. "Okay, no problem, I'll have his body sent to you now," Nick Fury said hurriedly. Moreover, before hanging up the phone, he directly made arrangements for Phil Coulson next to him. "Phil Coulson, hurry up and arrange the team that transports the body. Don't go back to S.H.I.E.L.D. Send the body of Captain the United States directly to the Umbrella Company headquarters." Lin Yu held up the phone and listened to Nick Fury's anxious voice, and suddenly felt that this guy was indeed a little pitiful. It is indeed not easy for the dignified S.H.I.E.L.D. director to be forced into this situation. Director Nick Fury was really helpful. "If you need anything from the Umbrella Company, please feel free to tell me," Lin Yu said generously. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. is a very important and core organization in the Marvel world. In the future, there may be places where we can help each other. Moreover, Lin Yu also knows what Nick Fury is worried about recently, so Lin Yu is still willing to help with such a small favor. "Really?" Nick Fury's slightly nervous voice came over the phone. "Mr. Lin is so polite, but I really need a little help from Mr. Lin." 2 hours later, Raccoon City. The roof of the Umbrella Company headquarters building. A S.H.I.E.L.D. helicopter landed with the frozen Captain of the United States. Alice personally received it and quickly sent the frozen Captain of the United States to the Hive base. Of course, Lin Yu couldn't treat the United States Captain like a corpse. He wasn't dead after all. Only, after being transferred to the Hive underground base, Lin Yu immediately arranged for Dr. Isaac to extract the genes of the Captain of the United States. A few minutes later, Alice took the genes of the Captain of the United States and came to Lin Yu's office. Seeing the test tube in Alice's hand, a system prompt appeared in Lin Yu's eyes. Gene name: Human Extremely Strong Gene, Captain Steve of the United States. Gene strength: 4 stars. Available experience points: 450 points. Gene contains ability ranking: Strength 100, Agility 50, Defense 70, Attack 50, Special Potential 230 inches. Lin Yu was a little surprised by this attribute distribution. Forgetting other attributes, the potential attribute actually has 230 points. However, after thinking about it, Lin Yu felt relieved. The Captain of the United States has a nickname in the Marvel world, called 55 Kai. I can have a 50-50 draw with anyone. In the final battle, I can even give Thanos a fight. The potential attribute of 230 points is considered reasonable. And, in addition to the exaggerated attribute distribution, the total amount of experience points provided by the United States Captain Jean is also quite impressive. This is the one with the most experience points besides Thor. You go out first. Lin Yu took the test tube and then ordered to Alice. Lin Yu was the only one left in Lin Yu's office again. A flash of light flashed, and the test tube in Lin Yu's hand disappeared into thin air. And the biochemical technology tree in Lin Yu's mind burst out with fierce light again. The main experience value increases instantly. Reached 1870 points. It only takes 3000 points to advance to the third level. And now, it's already halfway through. In addition to the experience of the main branch, the experience of each branch has also been improved a lot. Lin Yu felt the changes in his body. The changes this time are very average. Strength, speed, defense, attack, all-round improvement. However, Lin Yu cannot feel the improvement in potential. After all, potential is something as mysterious as it is mysterious. Perhaps in future battles, Lin Yu can feel what potential is. Definitely, the chances are not great either. After all, there are not many opportunities for Lin Yu to play hard in person. Feeling the changes in his body, Lin Yu's eyes flashed again. The hunter was also summoned from the biological cultivation tank in Lin Yu's mind. This time around, the changes to the predators aren't particularly drastic. It just looks like his body is stronger and the lines on his body are smoother. But the Captain of the United States has the power of super serum after all. His genes provide the hunter with greater strength and speed. However, in terms of potential, just like Lin Yu's own body, it is completely invisible. Definitely, the first generation of hunters was already very strong, both in terms of strength and speed. Now, with the blessing of the genes of the Captain of the United States, he is definitely stronger. As for how powerful it is, it still needs to be shown in actual combat. Looking at the hunter in front of him, Lin Yu thought for a moment and came up with its new name. Just call it Super Hunter. Lin Yu thought to himself. The word, super, comes from the super soldier serum. It also means that the hunter has some of the power of a super soldier. Same. Lin Yu also came to the cloning laboratory again. All super hunters were cloned again. 100,000 first-generation hunters were all updated into super hunters before they even appeared on the scene. 2 days later, a call from Nick Fury came to Alice. Alice came to Lin Yu's office immediately and reported the situation to Lin Yu. Lin Yu raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and then said, "Let them go." Lin Yu gave an order, and dozens of huge vans set off from a secret base of the Umbrella Company in Raccoon City. These vans are all painted black, with a rather obvious Umbrella Company logo in the center of the van. Dozens of trucks traveled a long distance, and their destination seemed to be New York. And half an hour after those trucks set off, on the roof of the Umbrella Company headquarters building, an Umbrella Company helicopter slowly took off and flew towards New York. On the helicopter, Lin Yu looked at New York City getting closer and closer in the distance, with an inexplicable smile on his face. Nick Fury, I mobilized all my troops this time, really just to help you. Lin Yu said to himself. A few minutes later, the helicopter landed on a helipad at S.H.I.E.L.D., and the convoy of dozens of trucks slowly stopped around the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters building. Almost the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. was surrounded by water. Seeing this scene, all the staff in the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters building were stunned. Oh my God, why are they all Umbrella Company cars? What do they want to do? Are they going to start a war with our S.H.I.E.L.D.? Where are the people from S.H.I.E.L.D.? Where is the director? Why hasn't there been any response? The employees of S.H.I.E.L.D. started discussing. But, throughout S.H.I.E.L.D., it seemed like there were no orders issued at all. It's as if Nick Fury didn't even see that S.H.I.E.L.D. was surrounded. What happened next shocked tens of thousands of S.H.I.E.L.D. employees. Outside the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters building, defense devices were suddenly raised, the suspension bridge was raised, and the fence was raised. This is SHIELD's defense system. But the problem is, these defense systems actually surround dozens of vehicles from the Umbrella Company. This is not about defending the Umbrella Company people at all. More like, close the door and beat the dog. Immediately afterwards, on several of the Umbrella Company's trucks, many heavily armed soldiers suddenly walked down in groups. They all wore black body armor, helmets and goggles on their heads, and numerous high-tech equipment on their bodies. They were almost armed to the teeth. These people used the trucks as a defense and all set up weapons, aiming in the direction of the SHIELD building. This is simply a posture ready for war with SHIELD. But, until now, there was no reaction from the SHIELD executives at all. The situation is simply weird to the extreme. And at the moment, in the director's office in the SHIELD headquarters building, Nick Fury and his most trusted agent, Phil Coulson, were standing quietly in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the actions of the Umbrella Company's armed forces below. Both of their faces looked a little heavy and slightly worried. But there was no surprise. Obviously, they were already prepared for the behavior of the Umbrella Company. However, even though they called the Umbrella Company, they were still a little worried. After all, if the Umbrella Company wants to harm SHIELD, SHIELD now has almost no room for resistance. Director, would it be too reckless for us to do this? Phil Coulson asked worriedly. Hearing Phil Coulson's concerns, Nick Fury smiled bitterly and said, Now, no matter whether we are reckless or not, there is no room for maneuver. We can only believe in Lin Yu. While the two were watching the actions of the Umbrella Company below, the door to Nick Fury's office was suddenly opened. Pierce, the head of the World Security Council and Nick Fury's boss who was working on the top floor of the SHIELD headquarters building, suddenly burst in. His face looked a little frightened. After entering the door, he hurriedly asked Nick Fury, Director Nick Fury, what happened? Why did the people from the Umbrella Company surround us? What do they want to do? Why don't you send agents to fight? Pierce asked a lot of questions. He was obviously in a very anxious mood. But, Nick Fury walked up to Pierce, gently patted his old friend on the shoulder, and said, Don't worry, the Umbrella Company is our friend, and they will leave after they finish handling some matters. Nick Fury still doesn't know that Pierce is the boss of Hydra. However, he is not stupid enough to tell the purpose of Umbrella Company here now. He doesn't trust anyone but Phil Coulson right now. Nick Fury greeted the somewhat anxious Pierce and sat down in his office. And poured him a cup of tea. But Pierce was obviously not in the mood for tea, and his face looked ugly. What secrets are you hiding from me? We have been old friends for so many years. You shouldn't distrust me, right? Tell me their purpose, or I will give you an order now for all SHIELD agents to attack. Pierce said loudly. Nick Fury, on the other hand, could only comfort him with a wry smile. While Pierce and Nick Fury were arguing in the director's office, there was new movement inside the Umbrella Company's truck. The truck compartments were all opened. Immediately afterwards, countless dark green shadows ran out of the carriage. They have hard scales on their bodies are streamlined, and their claws reflect the cold light like sharp blades. The Super Hunter Legion is truly revealed to the world for the first time. At the same time, a dark Umbrella Company helicopter also landed in the square in front of the SHIELD headquarters building. A bald man dressed in black and a beautiful secretary with blonde hair slowly walked down from the helicopter. Chapter 51. Lin Yu stepped off the helicopter, looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar SHIELD headquarters building in front of him, and smiled slightly. Led Alice forward slowly. Behind him, a heavily armed Umbrella Company biochemical emergency response team, led by Wesker, followed closely. Lin Yu took the lead and walked in from the main entrance of the SHIELD headquarters building. It looks extremely arrogant. Even Lin Yu himself did not expect that one day he would lead his fully armed men and tens of thousands of super hunters into the gate of SHIELD. Because Nick Fury did not give the order to resist. Therefore, all the SHIELD employees raised their hands in fear and watched helplessly as Lin Yu and his armed team rampaged. Finally, Lin Yu took the elevator and arrived at Nick Fury's office floor. And, under the guidance of the Red Queen, he easily found Nick Fury's office. Knocking lightly on the door, Nick Fury's voice soon came from inside. Come in. Even at this time, Lin Yu remained quite polite. After Nick Fury finished speaking, Lin Yu pushed the door open and entered. But, As soon as he entered the door, Lin Yu saw Pierce. Suddenly, a strange smile appeared on his face. It seems that there is no need to go upstairs by yourself, the real owner is here. After casually chatting with Nick Fury, Lin Yu came to the somewhat confused Pierce. The two have never met. However, they all know each other's identity. Pierce had guessed. After all, so many armed soldiers from the Umbrella Company were following the bald man, and his identity was about to be revealed. And Lin Yu definitely knows this Hydra boss, after all, he has watched the movie countless times. Should I call you Minister Pierce? Or should I call you Boss Hydra? Lin Yu smiled and asked directly. This sentence, the expressions of several people in the room changed instantly. Especially Nick Fury, who took a few steps back in shock. He looked at his old friend with disbelief. Since Lin Yu dares to say this, it cannot be groundless. Are you actually the leader of Hydra? Nick Fury pointed at Pierce and asked in horror. He really didn't expect that Pierce would be Hydra. It was clear that his position as S.H.I.E.L.D. director was highly recommended by Pierce. And, with Pierce's position, it would be unimaginable for him to be Hydra. But, immediately afterwards, Nick Fury also seems to have finally figured out a lot of things. If Pierce is really the leader of Hydra, then the reason why S.H.I.E.L.D. is now so penetrated by Hydra has finally been found. Only Pierce has this ability, almost turning S.H.I.E.L.D. into Hydra's home. Phil Coulson was also horrified. Lin Yu's words really made him feel quite incredible. Pierce, on the other hand, seemed much calmer. There was a look of doubt on his face, and he said, "You are mistaken, what is Hydra? Isn't Hydra extinct long ago?" Pierce's acting level is ridiculously high. Even Lin Yu couldn't help but applaud him. Tisk, tisk, you are indeed an old guy who has been lurking for so many years. Do you think you are a good person now? Lin Yu tsked twice and said with a smile. But, after saying a word, Pierce stopped talking to Lin Yu. He turned his head, looked at Nick Fury, and said in a sincere tone, "Fury, you don't believe me, do you?" Hearing his old friend's words, Nick Fury showed a look of hesitation on his face. Should I trust Lin Yu or my old friend Pierce? This is a problem. But, before Nick Fury could finish thinking, Lin Yu took action first. He waved slightly, and Wesker walked up behind him with a grin on his face. When he came to Pierce's side, a gun butt suddenly knocked Pierce unconscious. Nick Fury was shocked. He hurriedly stopped him and said, Mr. Lin, don't be impulsive. It's unlikely that Pierce is Hydra." Nick Fury was horrified. Why did Lin Yu suddenly take action before he even opened his mouth? But, Lin Yu's face suddenly turned cold and he said, "Don't talk nonsense, just watch." After Lin Yu finished speaking, dozens of armed members of the Umbrella Company behind him all raised their weapons and aimed at Nick Fury and Phil Coulson. Show no mercy. Nick Fury and Phil Coulson were frightened and hurriedly shut their mouths. The scene before him seemed to be beyond his control. Nick Fury and Phil Coulson looked at each other and saw deep regret in each other's eyes. Now it's better, it's easy to ask God but hard to give away. The two of them wanted to cry but had no tears. Facing dozens of armed members of the Umbrella Company with weapons, they had no room to fight back. And, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been surrounded. Those terrifying monsters are under the building. They can only choose to watch quietly. And at the moment, Wesker took out the rope with ease and tied Pierce directly to a chair. Then, he got a basin of cold water from outside and poured it directly on Pierce's face. Pierce woke up instantly. When he saw the scene in front of him and felt his physical condition, his expression suddenly changed. But that's still nothing. What horrified him the most was that Wesker's men actually handed Wesker a black suitcase. The suitcase was opened and filled with various tools. No, it should be called a torture instrument. Pierce has been the minister of the World Security Council for so many years, so he is naturally familiar with these horrific instruments of torture. If you use this method on yourself, it will definitely cost you half your life. Although Pierce is the boss of Hydra, his age has long passed the stage where he was not afraid of anything. The older a person gets, the more afraid they are of death. Definitely, I am also more afraid of pain. No, 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 don't use this on me, I'm not Hydra, you're mistaken. I am the minister of the World Security Council. I am protected by the United States government. If you dare to torture me, you will definitely be wanted by the entire United States. Oh my God, you executioners, you. Pierce was still yelling, but Wesker didn't care. He took out several needles and inserted one into each of Pierce's 10 fingers. Pierce immediately screamed in pain and frantically. As more and more punishments were used on him, his mouth finally became less harsh. No, don't, I said everything. But Lin Yu was still standing quietly in front of the window, admiring the scenery outside. Seemed unmoved. At this time, even Nick Fury couldn't stand it anymore. He stood next to Lin Yu and said weakly, Mr. Lin, he is going to say it, forget it. After all, they are old friends for many years. Even if Pierce is really Hydra, Nick Fury can't bear it. Moreover, at this time, Pierce is obviously more of a surrender. Nick Fury felt cold all over just looking at those instruments of torture. After hearing Nick Fury's persuasion, Lin Yu turned his head and suddenly smiled at Nick Fury. Smile like a devil. Just another half hour and it'll be done. Lin Yu looked at the time on his watch and ordered Wesker. This half hour. For Pierce, it seemed like half a lifetime. I fainted from the pain again and again, and was woken up by cold water splashing on me again and again. In the end, when he couldn't even pour cold water on him, Wesker directly injected him with a stimulant. Not only will you not faint, but it will even amplify the pain several times. Pierce was completely devastated. Finally, half an hour later, Wesker finally stopped. Lin Yu came to Pierce, who had been tortured and had few good parts of his body. Why are you so stubborn? Why don't you just explain everything when I asked you for the first time? Lin Yu curled his lips and said innocently. Pierce's voice was a little hoarse, and he looked like he had aged 10 years. I explain everything, Pierce said angrily. Lin Yu smiled slightly and said nonchalantly, it doesn't matter whether you explain it or not. Do you think the umbrella company's expertise is in vain? After speaking, Lin Yu winked at Wesker. Then, Wesker took another black suitcase from his younger brother's hand. After the suitcase was opened, a syringe filled with blue liquid was stored inside. Wesker picked up the syringe and flicked it gently. Then, he stabbed Pierce in the arm. Aside. Nick Fury asked weakly, Mr. Lin, what is this? Lin Yu spread his hands and said, it's definitely Veritaserum. It's produced by Umbrella Company. One Veritaserum solves all problems. After hearing Lin Yu's explanation, Nick Fury was suddenly confused. Veritaserum, with this thing, why did he still torture Pierce for so long? No reason. Could it be a simple hobby? Nick Fury and Phil Coulson looked puzzled. Lin Yu, looking at the expressions of the two of them, seemed to realize that there was something wrong with what he just said. After laughing twice, Lin Yu explained guiltily, Veritaserum needs to be tortured first before it can be used. Torture it first before it works. Nick Fury and Phil Coulson are both agent leaders, how could they not know the effects of Veritaserum? And, Lin Yu also said just now that the Umbrella Company is specialized in this. How could the Veritaserum in hand not work well? So, Pierce was tortured for so long, he died unjustly. However, Nick Fury and Phil Coulson dare not say that. After all, Pierce's tragic situation is vivid in his mind. They suddenly felt that they understood why Lin Yu did what he did. It seems that the fact that the two of them are so scared now is the reason why Lin Yu does this. He simply wanted to scare himself. What a madman. 1 minute later, the Veritaserum completely spread throughout Pierce's body. His eyes gradually became blurred. He even forgot about the pain in his body. Lin Yu, on the other hand, asked straight to the point. Tell me, who are the Hydra members hidden in S.H.I.E.L.D.? Hearing Lin Yu's question, Nick Fury and Phil Coulson also hurriedly pricked up their ears. This is the most critical thing today. Pierce was dazed and said, there is Rumlow. The first name made Nick Fury and Phil Coulson suddenly look serious. Rumlow. Sure enough, it was the same as what Lin Yu said that day. Sure enough, Pierce is the leader of Hydra. Then, Pierce said slowly again, Sidwell. Upon hearing this name, Nick Fury and Phil Coulson's expressions changed again. Absolutely right, exactly what Lin Yu said. And at the moment. That's when Pierce said the name Sidwell. Under the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters building, a dark green figure suddenly emerged from the ranks of the super hunters. It's extremely fast. In almost the blink of an eye, he passed through the lobby of the SHIELD headquarters building. The employees in the lobby only felt a blur in front of their eyes and could not see anything. Then, a breeze blew across everyone's faces. It seemed like something was flying past, but no one was sure. And on the 20th floor of the SHIELD headquarters building, Sitwell, who was in front of the window, nervously looking at the Umbrella Company team and the monsters below, suddenly dropped his head. There was no warning at all. There was only a thud sound, and then Sitwell's head fell to the ground. Even the expression on his face didn't change much. Immediately afterwards, his body also lost its support and slowly fell to the ground. In the office where Sitwell was located, the SHIELD employees were shocked. They just felt a dark green shadow flash in front of them, and their colleague Sitwell died in front of them. Blood spurted out wildly. The SHIELD employees in this office were shouting wildly. Some took out their pistols and looked around on guard. Some hid under the table, shivering. Some people ran out of the office and wanted to leave this weird place. All in all, it was a mess. And at the moment, in Nick Fury's office, Pierce said a name again. After hearing the name, the Red Queen instantly found the location of that person through the cameras and various information in the SHIELD headquarters building. Then, in less than a second, the location was told to Lin Yu. Lin Yu, on the other hand, directly controlled the other super hunter and galloped towards the location mentioned by the Red Queen. From the moment Pierce named a Hydra member to the moment the guy moved his head, the process took no more than 2 seconds. Nick Fury could even hear a panicked shout coming from below every time Pierce said a name. The entire SHIELD building was in chaos. The smell of blood permeates the air. But no one dared to go outside. Because the entire SHIELD building has been completely surrounded by the Umbrella Company. Not only are there heavily armed warriors, but there are also monsters that look terrifying. The bloody storm only appeared inside the SHIELD headquarters building. Outside, it's still calm. Pierce is worthy of being the leader of Hydra. He knows all the Hydra members hidden within SHIELD. He can even name the less important cleaners. And this massacre lasted for a full hour. The entire SHIELD headquarters building has already turned into sheer hell. Blood was everywhere. Headless corpses were also lying in various offices. Countless SHIELD staff members were hiding in every corner, trembling with their heads in their hands. Even SHIELD agents like them can no longer bear this tragic situation. At the moment, in Nick Fury's office, Pierce finally said the last name. His condition has reached its limit. Being tortured for a long time, coupled with the injection of stimulants and veritaserum, his body was almost on the verge of collapse. Definitely, his spirit had already collapsed. If it weren't for the fact that the Umbrella Company's veritaserum was a bit powerful, he wouldn't have been able to finish the list. After saying the last name, Pierce finally passed out again. Lin Yu estimated that no matter what kind of methods were used against him, it would be difficult to wake him up. Only by resting for a while can you recover. However, Pierce's mission can be considered completed. Lin Yu winked at Wesker and others, and Wesker immediately left the office with his men. There were only 4 people left in the office again. At this moment, Lin Yu's face also showed a smile again. Lin Yu slowly walked to Nick Fury's side and said, "How about it? I've done a good job for you. If you close the door and beat the dog, not a single Hydra will be left." Although Lin Yu's description was not particularly appropriate, Nick Fury still nodded slowly. Indeed, Lin Yu's methods were a bit cruel. But it turned out perfectly. From then on, there were no more Hydra spies in SHIELD. Although SHIELD will have a hard time because of this, at least it can start from scratch. "Thank you," Nick Fury said sincerely. Through this time, he also thoroughly saw the methods of Lin Yu, the boss of the Umbrella Company. During the massacre just now, he understood that he must maintain a good relationship with Lin Yu no matter what in the future. This man cannot be messed with. Hearing Nick Fury's thanks, Lin Yu grinned, showing his big white teeth, and said casually, "Okay, let's do it. If you need help from me in the future, feel free to contact my secretary. I'll be on call." After Lin Yu said that, he turned and left. There was no sloppiness at all. I didn't ask Nick Fury for any benefits. It seems that this matter is just a simple help. It wasn't until Lin Yu and Alice walked out of the office door that Nick Fury and Phil Coulson let out a long breath. Their tense nerves could finally relax a little. In the hour and a half from when Lin Yu entered to when he left, both of them were almost exhausted from nervousness. Standing in the same room with Lin Yu, they felt like every second was torture. The pressure Lin Yu brought to them was really too great. If I had to describe the feeling, it would be that being with you is like being with a tiger. Nick Fury and Phil Coulson looked at each other, and both saw a hint of shock in each other's eyes. Then, the two of them looked at Pierce again, who was still trapped in the chair and no longer looked like a human. Slowly, they seemed to have lost all their strength and collapsed on the ground. From now on, I won't offend Lin Yu, but I definitely won't have too much contact with him. Nick Fury thought to himself. But, what left Nick Fury speechless was that he received another call from Secretary Lin Yu that afternoon. Umbrella Corporation, Hive Underground Base. Lin Yu came back not long ago with his large army. Then I received the news that the captain of the United States finally woke up. After being frozen for 70 years, he still survived. Lin Yu had already expected this news. However, I have never figured out how to deal with this old guy. His thoughts are still stuck in those 70 years ago, and he used to be a soldier with stubborn ideas. After thinking about it, Lin Yu decided to ask Alice to call Nick Fury and ask S.H.I.E.L.D. to pick up the United States Captain Steve. Although Lin Yu acts vigorously and resolutely and shows no mercy to his enemies, he is not an executioner after all. Steve didn't offend him, and he also benefited from him, so there was no need to kill him. But Steve's personality and thoughts are incompatible with the Umbrella Company, and there is no use keeping him. Just give it back to S.H.I.E.L.D. Lin Yu didn't even have any interest in meeting Steve. After arranging Steve's affairs, Lin Yu went directly to the virus research laboratory in the Hive underground base. After learning about Alexia's existence, Lin Yu's desire for the T-virus has reached its peak. That thing is the most powerful trump card of the protective umbrella. If combined with his own biochemical technology tree, even Lin Yu cannot estimate how powerful the Umbrella Company will become. Soon, Lin Yu brought Alice to the door of the virus laboratory again. Pushing the door open gently, the two of them walked in directly. But, what surprised Lin Yu was that this place was completely different from other laboratories and seemed extremely deserted. There are bottles and cans everywhere, and it even looks a bit dirty. I didn't even see where Alexia was. It's completely different from Lin Yu's inspection of other laboratories. Definitely, Lin Yu didn't mind either. After all, it is your own territory, so there is no need to mind these false courtesy. Lin Yu took Alice around the laboratory, and finally found Alexia in a corner who was conducting experiments on a white mouse. Alexia looked exactly the same as Lin Yu in the Resident Evil movie she had seen in her previous life. The only difference is that she looks a little sloppy now. Her hair was a little messy, as if she hadn't showered in a long time. The clothes on his body were wrinkled and stained with various strange colors. Until Lin Yu and Alice walked to the door of this room, she didn't pay attention. It seemed that all the energy was focused on the experiment in front of him. It wasn't until Lin Yu coughed lightly that Alexia raised her head. When she saw someone breaking into her laboratory without permission, a trace of anger immediately appeared on Alexia's face. She has said many times that she will not allow anyone to come to her laboratory. Alexia almost exploded. But, when she saw clearly that the person who came was actually her big boss, she immediately put her anger back. Immediately afterwards, a hint of excitement appeared on his face. Boss. Alexia was excited but also a little confused. She hasn't left the laboratory for a long time, and she hasn't seen her boss for a long time. Therefore, she was still a little unsure whether the bald man in front of her was her boss. It looks somewhat similar, but her figure is much better than that of her boss. And his face is more rosy. The biggest difference is that the person in front of me is bald. At this moment, Alice hurriedly stood up from behind Lin Yu and introduced to Alexia, "Dr. Alexia, the boss has come to see you personally." Alexia still knows Alice. After all, Alice's figure travels throughout the Hive underground base every day. All orders from Lin Yu are delivered and supervised by her. After hearing Alice's introduction, the confusion on Alexia's face finally disappeared. But, her first words left Lin Yu and Alice confused. "Boss, I heard that you brought back a corpse injected with super soldier serum. Can you bring it to me for study?" Alexia asked expectantly. After a brief silence and speechlessness, Lin Yu suddenly asked seriously, "You want his body, is it useful?" Alexia hurriedly said, "It is definitely useful. The project I am currently researching is about to have a breakthrough. The only problem now is its stability after integrating with biological organisms. I have heard of the super soldier serum. If that thing is integrated with the human body, after integrating, it will become extremely stable. If I can learn from it, it will definitely make my research breakthrough again." Alexia spoke very quickly and seemed a little anxious. However, this is normal. The project she is researching has reached its most critical moment. If Lin Yu doesn't come, she will take the initiative to find Lin Yu. Lin Yu came at the right time. Lin Yu's eyes suddenly lit up after hearing Alexia's words. "What is your research project?" Lin Yu asked. When talking about the project, Alexia became excited again. "Boss, I haven't given this research a name yet, but the virus I have researched will definitely subvert the world's view of viruses. After integrating with the host, it can make the host extremely powerful and evolve infinitely, and..." Alexia's introduction is not finished yet. Lin Yu already understood. This project studied by Alexia is definitely one of the most powerful viruses of the Umbrella Company in the previous life. It may be the Veronic virus, or it may be the T virus, but no matter which it is the most powerful trump card of the Umbrella Company. "Alice, go and stop the captain of the United States, don't let him go," Lin Yu ordered hurriedly. It seemed that people from S.H.I.E.L.D. had come to pick up Steve just now. After hearing Lin Yu's words, Alice hurriedly picked up the communicator and started to contact Wesker. It was Wesker who was responsible for handing over the captaincy of the United States to S.H.I.E.L.D. At the moment, the roof of the Umbrella Company's Raccoon City headquarters building. A S.H.I.E.L.D. helicopter is parked on the roof. Below the plane, Wesker and Steve, who still didn't understand the situation, were walking towards the plane. On the plane, two guys wearing S.H.I.E.L.D. uniforms also got off the plane and came to greet them. However, at this moment, Wesker suddenly felt the vibration coming from his communication. He picked it up hurriedly. Well, okay. Wesker seemed to have received some order. He held the phone in one hand and suddenly pulled out his pistol from his waist with the other hand. He took a step back and pointed the gun directly at the back of Steve's head. "Let me confirm again, do you want a corpse?" Wesker asked seriously. On the other side of the phone, Alice was slightly stunned. It seems that Alexia just wanted a corpse. But after thinking about it, Alice asked Lin Yu again for instructions. "Boss, do you want to live or die?" Lin Yu was also stunned by this question. He turned his head, looked at Alexia, and asked, "Do you want the body of the United States Captain Steve, or just a few tubes of blood?" Alexia thought for a while and said, "Just a few tubes of blood will be enough, his body is of no use." Upon hearing this, Alice hurriedly conveyed this sentence to Wesker through the communicator. On the roof of the Umbrella Company. The two staff members who had just gotten off the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicopter saw Wesker pointing a pistol at the back of the captain of the United States head, and a chill went straight to their foreheads. The entire S.H.I.E.L.D. fear of the Umbrella Corporation is now deeply rooted in their bones. Seeing Wesker raise his pistol, they immediately raised their hands in a hurry. Wesker's behavior frightened them. "Aren't you here to receive the captain of the United States? Why did the guy suddenly pull out a pistol?" And at the moment, Steve seemed to notice something after seeing the unusual behavior of the two S.H.I.E.L.D. staff members. He turned back hastily. Then, he happened to see Wesker holding the phone with one hand and inserting the pistol in his hand into the holster on his waist with the other hand. Seeing Steve turn his head to look at himself, Wesker hurriedly forced a smile on his face. Then he said, "By the way, our boss said he would like to keep some blood samples from you to help you check your physical condition." As Wesker spoke, two of his men ran over behind him with suitcases. Then, two men came to Steve's side, one on the left and the other on the right, and helped him roll up the sleeves on his arms. And Wesker quickly took out the syringe from the box. My physical condition is very good, no need to check." Steve was a little confused. He was about to get on the plane. Why did he suddenly remember to check himself up? "Haven't you checked it many times? Moreover, just check your body, why do you need to draw blood?" But, before Steve could finish speaking, the syringe in Wesker's hand had already been pierced into Steve's arm. What Steve didn't know was, just now, he had already walked past the gate of hell. If Alice hadn't asked more, Wesker would have followed Alexia's words and turned him into a corpse. Although Steve was very strong, if he was shot in the back of the head with a pistol, he probably wouldn't survive. After drawing 5 tubes of blood, Wesker put Steve on the plane. Several SHIELD staff members on the helicopter were so frightened that they flew away in a hurry. In their view, umbrella companies are definitely not a place to stay for a long time. Steve, on the other hand, had a lot of blood drawn, so he fell asleep as soon as he got on the plane. A few minutes later, Wesker took several tubes of blood drawn from Steve and came to the virus laboratory in the Hive underground base. Seeing those tubes of blood, Alexia was extremely excited. Hastily she began her experiment. Even the big boss Lin Yu couldn't care about it. What a good and dedicated employee. Lin Yu sighed, and then led Alice and Wesker out of the laboratory. In front of the virus laboratory, Lin Yu told Alice again, "From now on, no matter what Alexia's request is, I will try my best to satisfy her, especially the experimental supplies. I will give her whatever she asks for. Do you understand?" Alice nodded hurriedly. Although she didn't understand why her boss was suddenly so interested in the weakest laboratory in the company, she needed to abide by her boss's words unconditionally. The umbrella company has once again entered a period of stable development. Alexia is studying the blood of the Captain of the United States, and the development of the virus is progressing rapidly. Abigail from the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory has already begun work on combining the steel battle suit with the Hunter, and the speed is not slow. It is expected that the first finished product will be available soon. The expansion of the cloning laboratory has been ongoing. So far, 100,000 biological cultivation chambers have been expanded again. The entire umbrella company is running like crazy. It seems that only Lin Yu, the big boss, has nothing to do every day. But Lin Yu has not been idle. He has been exercising his body. Since the body cannot instantly withstand the power brought by the biochemical technology tree, these powers are slowly increasing all the time. Lin Yu, on the other hand, can constantly adapt to the increase in body strength and speed only through a lot of exercise. At the same time, Lin Yu also arranged for the Red Queen to monitor everything happening in the world in detail. Lin Yu even directly gave some lists and asked the Red Queen to pay attention to the people on the lists. For example, Tony, such as Thor, for example, that Loki who has not yet appeared on Earth. Tony has been making a lot of noise recently. He has directly admitted his identity as Iron Man at a press conference. But Loki never showed up. But, according to Lin Yu's estimation, the time when Loki comes to Earth should not be far away. By the time, whether it's Loki's genes or those Chitauri, it is estimated that his biotechnology tree can be improved again. The New York military has been relatively stable recently. Nothing big happened all the time. Definitely, General Ross is not a guy who can settle down. However, after several secret confrontations with the umbrella company, the New York military base has suffered heavy losses. However, after this period of self-cultivation and recuperation, coupled with financial allocations from the United States government, the New York military district has regained a lot of strength. General Ross also set his sights on the umbrella company again. It is not the character of General Ross to retaliate. SHIELD. After the last Hydra massacre, the entire SHIELD became depressed for a few days. However, under the leadership of Nick Fury, it quickly regained its vitality. And SHIELD's base is not just the headquarters building. In a secret underground base in the suburbs of New York, astronomer Dr. Eric is secretly studying the Tesseract. This is another secret project of SHIELD. Weapons are developed by studying the energy in the Tesseract. However, this project has not been penetrated by Hydra due to the small number of participants. Moreover, there seems to be some breakthroughs in this project recently. But Nick Fury's focus is not on this project. He has recently been preparing for the formation of Avengers. Ever since he met Captain Marvel when he was young, he had the idea of forming the Avengers. In recent times, this idea has become even stronger. Especially since so many things have happened recently, such as the arrival of Thor and the three warriors of Asgard, the appearance of Iron Man and so on. But, on this day, Nick Fury suddenly received a call from Hill Agent. On the phone, the Hill Agent was quite anxious. Because, in the secret underground base of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Tesseract was being studied by Dr. Eric. Suddenly something went wrong. It seemed that it was suddenly activated. Nick Fury rushed to the scene. As soon as he arrived here, Dr. Eric reported the situation of the Tesseract to Nick Fury. Nick Fury frowned and asked, "Can't we cut off its power supply?" Now, after all, SHIELD's research on the Tesseract wasn't thorough enough. If it is activated rashly, it will be troublesome. S.H.I.E.L.D. had just experienced a disaster, and Nick Fury didn't want any more problems to happen to his base. But, Dr. Eric's words directly poured cold water on Nick Fury. The Tesseract is originally an energy source. Even if we don't provide it with power, it can operate independently. Dr. Eric said worriedly. As he studied Tesseract more and more deeply, he felt that it became more and more mysterious. My own research is just the beginning of it. Then hurry up and evacuate this place. Even if Nick Fury was reluctant, he could only choose to abandon this underground base. After all, talent is the core. S.H.I.E.L.D. is now seriously short of personnel and can no longer afford the loss of personnel. After hearing Nick Fury's words, the Hill Agent on the side hurriedly picked up the communicator in his hand and arranged for everyone again, "All personnel, evacuate quickly and speed up." But at the moment, the Tesseract suddenly erupted in a fierce blue light. It's completely activated. Then, a dark blue portal suddenly appeared in the underground base of S.H.I.E.L.D. In that portal, a guy in gorgeous robes and two golden horned helmets suddenly appeared. Umbrella Corporation's Raccoon City Hive underground base. In Lin Yu's office, the Queen's voice suddenly sounded in Lin Yu's ears. "Boss, I detected a huge amount of energy burst in the suburbs of New York. Something unexpected happened in SHIELD's secret underground base. An accident just occurred in SHIELD's secret base, and the Red Queen immediately detected it." At the same time, the large screen on the wall of Lin Yu's office suddenly opened automatically under the control of Queen Hong. Then, on the big screen, a scene inside SHIELD's secret base appeared. As long as there is a network, it cannot be hidden from the Red Queen's detection. And, there are a lot of cameras in that base. The Red Queen instantly controlled all the cameras in the base and directly broadcast the footage in front of Lin Yu. On the screen in front of Lin Yu, Loki held the psychic scepter in his hand, with a sinister smile on his face. He easily killed several S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and then controlled Hawkeye Barton and Dr. Eric. Then, Loki also got the Tesseract. The same plot as in the Avengers movie. In fact, Lin Yu feels like she is reviewing the plot of a movie now. The plot of Avengers 1 that Lin Yu has been waiting for a long time has finally begun. And Loki finally arrived on Earth. At the moment, while Lin Yu was watching the picture on the big screen, the system prompt sounded again in Lin Yu's mind. "Ding, the Giants of Jotunheim bloodline gene has been detected, which can provide the host with a super multi-attribute branch experience. Please get it as soon as possible." This time the system prompt sounded, Lin Yu was not surprised at all. Those who don't know may be a little confused as to why the system prompts the Giants of Jotunheim gene when Loki appears. But, as a time traveler who is familiar with Marvel plots and characters, Lin Yu naturally knows Loki's identity. Loki is actually a descendant of the Giants of Jotunheim. However, in a battle between Asgard and the Giants of Jotunheim a long time ago, the infant Loki was brought back to Asgard by Odin and became Odin's adopted son and Thor's younger brother. But, this time, Lin Yu was not in a hurry to get Loki's genes. Because, Lin Yu knows that according to the plot of Avengers, Loki will open the portal and summon the Chitauri army next. Chitauri is also a gene that Lin Yu must obtain. At the same time, Chitauri's flesh and blood will also bring a large amount of cloning raw materials to Lin Yu's cloning laboratory. How could Lin Yu miss out on killing two birds with one stone? At that time, when the Chitauri army arrives, it will not be too late for Lin Yu to obtain the genes of Loki and Chitauri at the same time. Now, Lin Yu has only one thing to do. That is, before the Chitauri army comes, prepare all the combat power of the Umbrella Company. Then, when the battle begins, keep all those Chitauri. Alice. Lin Yu shouted softly. Alice quickly opened the door and walked in. Alice's office is next to Lin Yu, waiting for Lin Yu's summons at any time. Come on, come with me to a few laboratories, Lin Yu said with a soft smile. More than 10 days have passed since the last time I went to Alexia's place. In these days, both virus laboratories and weapons research and development laboratories have made great progress. But the rate of progress is not enough. Loki has arrived, and it is obvious that the time for the Chitauri army to arrive on Earth is not far away. The Umbrella Company can only profit from this war if it is fully prepared. At the same time, S.H.I.E.L.D. has not been idle during this time. The arrival of Loki made Nick Fury instantly nervous. That Tesseract can actually be used as a portal in Loki's hands. This means that Loki can use the Tesseract to bring armies from other planets. This is much more of a threat than an Umbrella Company. Nick Fury immediately arranged for his trusted agents to start the formation of the Avengers team. Iron Man Tony Stark, Hulk Bruce Banner, Captain Steve of the United States, Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, and even Thor are all targets. Umbrella Company headquarters building. In the director's office. At the moment, Phil Coulson is reporting to Nick Fury on the formation of Avengers. There should be no problem with Tony Stark. He has actually wanted to join the Avengers for a long time. Bruce Banner, Natasha Romanoff has also completed the mission. Their plane will arrive this afternoon. After hearing Phil Coulson's report, Nick Fury nodded slowly. Regarding the formation of Avengers, it was relatively smooth. But after Phil Coulson reported his work, he did not leave. Instead, he stood there, unable to speak. Nick Fury asked doubtfully, "Is there anything else?" After hearing what his director said, Phil Coulson said hesitantly, "Director, do you think we should also recruit Lin Yu, the owner of the Umbrella Company? After all, Tony Stark has already participated. If we try to invite Lin Yu, will you also be willing to participate?" Phil Coulson feels that with the strength of the Umbrella Company, joining Avengers is more than enough. Tony Stark is also the boss of a large company and he has joined, so Lin Yu may also be willing to join. Moreover, if Lin Yu is willing to join, it will definitely improve the overall strength of the Avengers team to a higher level. Coupled with the biochemical monsters of the Umbrella Company, if they participate in a large-scale battle, they will definitely be an extremely terrifying force. But hearing Phil Coulson's question, Nick Fury smiled bitterly and shook his head. He slowly said, "You are thinking too simply. The Umbrella Company is indeed very powerful. I even think it is much stronger than S.H.I.E.L.D. However, do you think that with Lin Yu's character, he will be willing to obey orders? Moreover, even if Lin Yu is willing to obey orders, do you dare to order him?" Nick Fury is a smart man and sees things very clearly. Hearing his director's words, Phil Coulson also nodded slowly. What Nick Fury said does make sense. I have been thinking about strength before, but I forgot the most important point. The Umbrella Company is indeed ridiculously strong, but even if he is willing to join, no one can command him. Everyone has to obey his command. And S.H.I.E.L.D. has also been educated in this regard once. It's easy to ask God but hard to send God away. Lin Yu didn't expect that Phil Coulson would even have the idea of recruiting him into the Avengers. However, even if it is really invited, Lin Yu will not participate. Lin Yu doesn't like to be ordered around by others. In your own company, you can do whatever you want, how relaxed and comfortable you are. And no matter what Lin Yu wants to do, countless people will work for him without having to take action himself. This kind of life as a behind-the-scenes boss is what Lin Yu wants most. Even so far, Lin Yu has never shown his personal strength in front of anyone. Because there is no use at all. It wasn't used before, and it's even less useful now. Just when S.H.I.E.L.D. was busy with Loki's affairs, good news finally came from Lin Yu's virus laboratory. Thanks to Alexia's decades of hard work and the influence of the United States Captain's blood, Umbrella Company's first-generation virus finally came out. Lin Yu was extremely excited when he heard the news. This news was simply the news that made Lin Yu the happiest besides obtaining the biochemical technology tree. An umbrella company cannot be called a complete umbrella company without the power of viruses. After the Red Queen informed Lin Yu of the news, Lin Yu immediately put down all his work and took Alice with him to the virus laboratory in the Hive underground base. The first time she met Lin Yu, Alexia reported to Lin Yu excitedly. "Boss, the virus I studied is finally stable. By learning from the integration method of the super soldier serum in Steve's blood and human cells, I improved the coexistence model between the virus and the human body, making the virus more stable after entering the human body. The greatest ability of this virus is to increase the metabolic rate of the human body, making the human body stronger and more powerful, and also has a strong recovery ability. If successfully integrated with humans, this will be the greatest opportunity for human evolution." Alexia is still constantly introducing the power of the virus she developed. But, listening to these introductions, Lin Yu's mood gradually calmed down. Because, while Alexia was explaining, Lin Yu heard a word. That's, what if. What Alexia said is, if integrate is successful. Later, Lin Yu thought of the plots and scenes seen in the Resident Evil series of movies. The Umbrella Company's virus is indeed powerful. Because of the virus injected into it, many nearly invincible bosses have been created. However, the leak of the virus also led to the destruction of the entire world. Finally, Alexia finished her introduction, and Lin Yu finally had the opportunity to ask at this time, "Alexia, tell me, what are the chances of the virus you developed successfully integrating with the human body?" This is Lin Yu's biggest concern. Alexia thought for a moment, then stretched out 3 fingers. 30%. The excitement on Alexia's face gradually calmed down. 30% is the result of her borrowing Steve's blood and maximizing the success rate of virus integration. Lin Yu also understands that the 30% chance is considered very high. In the Resident Evil movie, no matter what kind of virus, the chance of success is very small, almost only 1 in 10 million. In the previous movie, it was a miracle that Alice could successfully integrate with the T-virus. And now, there is no way he would allow his subordinates to gamble on the 30% chance. "Have you named the virus you studied?" Lin Yu asked calmly. Alexia slowly shook her head and said, "Not yet, boss, you can name it." Lin Yu did not refuse and said directly, "Well, let's call it the T-virus. The 30% success rate is too low. Human experiments are not allowed until the success rate reaches 80%. You can continue to improve. If you need anything, please feel free to do so. Find Alice, and I will provide you with whatever resources you need, but you must increase your chances of success." Although Lin Yu is the big boss of the Umbrella Company, he is not the inhumane guy in the Resident Evil movies. After these days of getting along, Lin Yu has developed feelings for the people around him. Especially the core members such as Alice, Wesker, Isaac and Abigail. Lin Yu definitely didn't want them to take this risk. In addition, be sure to protect the T-virus test tubes and never let them leak out. Lin Yu reminded solemnly again, he did not want his hive base to become like in the Resident Evil movie. Moreover, at the same time, Lin Yu also ordered the Red Queen again, if the virus is discovered to be leaked, the virus laboratory must be sealed immediately and the virus must not be allowed to leak outside. When the virus laboratory was built, it was completely sealed. And today's Red Queen also completely obeys Lin Yu's orders. Therefore, there is still no problem in safeguarding the virus in case it is leaked. But, just when Lin Yu told Alexia. On the side, Alice, standing behind Lin Yu, looked a little uncertain. Her eyes were always looking at the green test tubes next to Alexia. A desire suddenly appeared in Alice's heart, and like a snowball, it grew bigger and bigger. Alice has always wanted to become stronger. Especially Lin Yu will always take her with her no matter what she does, but she is a weak woman who cannot protect her boss at all. She has always put Lin Yu's safety as more important than her own life. But I always felt powerless. That feeling is very bad. Especially that time, at the Stark Industrial Building shareholders meeting. Those men in black suddenly broke in, leaving her quite at a loss. Although on the surface, her expression remained calm. But in reality, she was worried about her boss. From that moment on, Alice has been craving for powerful power to the extreme. And Alice also didn't know Lin Yu's current strength, which had become extremely powerful. So, although she also heard Lin Yu's request, the desire in her heart became stronger and stronger. Subsequently, Lin Yu took Alice out of the virus laboratory and walked towards the weapons research and development laboratory. The progress of weapons research and development laboratories is much faster than that of virus laboratories. Abigail had already completed the combination of the steel battlesuit and the Hunter a week ago. Now, the Hunter version of the steel battlesuit has entered the production stage. However, since there are not many production equipments, the production progress is relatively slow. And at the moment, Alice, who was following Lin Yu, remained silent, as if she had something on her mind. Lin Yu was also concerned about the situation in the weapons research and development laboratory, so he did not notice Alice's uneasiness. Finally, the two came to the door of the weapons research and development laboratory. At the moment, Alice suddenly shouted to Lin Yu softly, "Boss." Lin Yu replied casually, "What's wrong?" Alice suddenly hesitated, and then said weakly, "Boss, I'm not feeling well." Since Lin Yu was thinking about the steel battle suit, he didn't pay much attention to it and said, "Then you should take a rest first and go to the doctor for a checkup. There is naturally a hospital in the Beehive underground base, and it is fully equipped with all kinds of equipment." Lin Yu thought Alice was simply not feeling well. Hearing Lin Yu's words, Alice nodded, turned and left. Lin Yu also directly opened the door of the weapons research and development laboratory and walked in. But what Lin Yu didn't notice was that the direction Alice left didn't seem to be the direction of the hospital. Rather, the direction of the virus laboratory. Lin Yu doesn't know these things. Because, as soon as Lin Yu entered the weapons research and development laboratory, Abigail hurriedly greeted him. Moreover, he hurriedly reported the results of the past few days to Lin Yu. "Boss, our production line is now at full capacity and can produce 10 sets of steel battle suits every day. Now we have 50 sets of finished products." Lin Yu was quite satisfied with Abigail's report. But the production speed is still a bit too slow. It is completely inferior to the expansion speed of the biological culture chamber of the cloning laboratory. Ellie, Lin Yu just wanted to arrange for Alice to expand the production line of the weapons research and development laboratory, but found that Alice was not by his side. Lin Yu was slightly startled. This was the first time that Alice was not by his side. It's actually a bit uncomfortable. Forget it, let Alice take a rest first, Lin Yu thought to himself. Then, he directly ordered Abigail, "Contact the person in charge of the engineering team and start the expansion of the steel battle suit production line as soon as possible. No matter what materials or resources are needed, special approval can be given, but the speed must be accelerated." Lin Yu made arrangements directly to Abigail. Anyway, with the Red Queen coordinating it, Lin Yu's orders can be conveyed to everyone's ears through the Red Queen. Subsequently, Lin Yu left the weapons research and development laboratory and went to the umbrella company's largest department now, the cloning laboratory. The one with the fastest progress is probably the cloning laboratory. The current cloning laboratory has expanded more than 5 times compared to the beginning. The number of biological cultivation chambers has reached a terrifying 500,000. But cloning raw materials are still quite scarce. After searching prisons all over America again, we have only just collected the cloning materials for 500,000 biochemical monsters. The scale of biological culture chambers is still increasing, but the raw materials for cloning obviously cannot keep up. But Lin Yu is not too anxious about this because he believes that the problem of raw materials will be solved after a while. After all, if we calculate the time, the Chidori army should be coming soon. The corners of Lin Yu's mouth raised slightly, looking forward to the arrival of the Chidori army more and more. By then, the 500,000 biochemical army will definitely shock the whole world. Umbrella Company, Hive Underground Base, in the virus laboratory. Not long after Lin Yu left the virus laboratory, Alice came back. She knew that since Lin Yu had just left here, he probably wouldn't be back in a short time. Arriving at the door of the virus laboratory, Alice opened the door of the laboratory with her finger. Alice has very high authority in the underground foundation of the Hive, and she can enter and exit almost everywhere at will. Even in a fairly strict virus laboratory, she can come in casually. It can be seen how much Lin Yu trusts her. In the virus laboratory, Alexia was slightly confused when she saw Alice leaving and coming back again. "Alice, what's wrong?" Alexia asked. Hearing Alexia's question, Alice was slightly hesitated. However, after thinking about it for a while, his eyes became firm again. "Alexia, if the T-virus wants to achieve the success rate of more than 80% mentioned by the boss, how long will it take? Alice asked. She was very eager to become stronger, but she didn't completely lose her mind. If the success rate can be improved in a short period of time, then you can wait. But Alexia shook her head and replied, it's difficult. The virus is not that easy to control. It's too difficult to achieve an 80% chance of success. Reaching the current 30% chance of success has already consumed Alexia's decades of youth. Moreover, it was Steve's appearance that allowed her research to make a rapid breakthrough. Without Steve's blood, the chance of success would not even be 10%. After hearing Alexia's words, Alice's eyes became firmer again. In fact, when Lin Yu was still here just now, she knew by looking at Alexia's expression that it should be impossible to reach 80%. Asking like this is just to confirm again. At this moment, Alice said directly, Alexia, I want to be injected with the T-virus. These words instantly shocked Alexia. Even for human experiments, Alice should not be used. After all, Alice's identity is not ordinary in the umbrella company. If it fails, the boss will be happy. You probably didn't tell the boss, right? Alexia asked cautiously. Although she was obsessed with research, she did not become a nerd. 14. Alice obviously came behind the boss's back. Alice shook her head, her tone still firm. Alexia, help me, I don't want to be so weak, I want to be able to protect the boss. It doesn't matter if you fail, you can clone me again and let my clone continue to accompany the boss. I have never been more hopeful than now, hoping to become stronger and have the power to protect my boss. Alice's words made Alexia completely moved. She didn't expect that the reason Alice wanted to become stronger was to be able to better protect her boss. For this reason, she found it difficult to refuse for a while. But the boss has just given instructions. If the probability of success is not reached 80%, it is not allowed to be used casually. Alexia said weakly, but her tone was obviously not very sure. And this time, Alice suddenly laughed, her smile as bright as a flower. But, for the boss, this 30% is just 100% in my opinion. Alice said slowly, with a firm expression. Alexia's heart has been shaken. Although the boss had already given the order, after all, it was Alice who wanted to be injected with the T-virus. She was the most trusted and closest person to the boss. If it had been anyone else, Alexia would have refused outright. However, Alice couldn't think of any reason to refuse. But, while the two were having a conversation, a figure suddenly appeared behind Alice. It wasn't until the hand touched Alice's head that she turned her head in panic. Seeing that figure, tears finally filled Alice's eyes. The figure is not someone else. Lin Yu is really coming back again. After coming out of the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory, Lin Yu wanted to see Alice's situation through the Red Queen. After all, Alice had never said that she wasn't feeling well. Even if she is not in good health, she rarely talks to Lin Yu. Therefore, Lin Yu was very worried about what would happen to Alice's health. But, when the Red Queen searched for Alice in the hive, she suddenly discovered that Alice had appeared in the virus laboratory. Queen Hong immediately reported this matter to Lin Yu. After hearing the report from the Red Queen, Lin Yu instantly realized the seriousness of the problem. Then, quickly returned to the virus laboratory. But, what surprised Alexia and Alice was that Lin Yu did not stop Alice from wanting to be injected with the T-virus. Are you sure you want to be injected with the T-virus? Lin Shou's tone actually contained a hint of doubting. He had already passed the Red Queen and heard what Alice said. Lin Yu also felt that Alice was indeed too weak. Although sometimes he could protect her when he was by her side, it was also possible that he was not by her side. At that time, Alice was just a weak woman with no strength. In this chaotic Marvel world, her life safety is not guaranteed at all. Definitely, there is another most important reason why Lin Yu didn't stop Alice from injecting the T-virus. That is, Lin Yu is a time traveler and knows many plots in Resident Evil. Although the current world is not the world of Resident Evil, but the world of Marvel, Lin Yu discovered that the main characters in Resident Evil are almost the same as those in previous movies. Exactly the same. In other words, the possibility that Alice can integrate the T-virus is very high. In the previous movie, the chance of successful integration of the T-virus was almost only 1 in 100,000. But even then, Alice integrated successfully. But now, the chance of success has reached 30%. Lin Yu feels that there should not be any problems with Alice's integrate T-virus. As early as when Alexia said the 30% chance of success, Lin Yu had already had the idea of injecting Alice with the T-virus, but he did not say it out. This idea is not because I want Alice to have the ability to protect herself. You don't need protection yourself. Lin Yu just hopes she can have the ability to protect herself. Now, Alice herself offered to be injected with the T-virus. After thinking for a long time, Lin Yu decided to respect Alice's idea. Even, Lin Yu feels that after Alice successfully integrates the T-virus, he will tell her his true strength. By then, Alice's expression will definitely be wonderful. Hearing Lin Yu's words, Alice nodded gently. Even in front of Lin Yu, she did not change her mind. At this moment, Lin Yu said, "Okay, since you want to become stronger, then get the injection, and I will always be by your side." Lin Yu smiled slightly, and then nodded to Alexia. Alexia's eyes suddenly lit up. She also hopes that someone can inject the T-virus. In that way, her many arguments will be supported by experimental data, and it can also help her research go further. Soon, Alexia took Alice and Lin Yu to the innermost part of the virus laboratory. Here, there is a completely sealed room. In that room, after the T-virus is injected, it will be completely sealed. Even if the integrate fails, it will not have any impact on the outside world. Encouraged by Lin Yu and Alexia's eyes, Alice slowly walked in. While Lin Yu was quietly waiting for the integration process of Alice and the T-virus in the virus laboratory. Just as all other departments of the Umbrella Company were making full preparations for the coming war. During this time, S.H.I.E.L.D. was quite unstable. Loki has a lot of plots and tricks. He even deliberately let S.H.I.E.L.D. capture him, and then angered Bruce Banner, who had joined the Avengers team. Bruce Banner still cannot control the Hulk in his body very well at this time. A chaos caused by Hulk once again severely damaged the morale of the newly established Avengers team. But, during Loki's trouble this time, Hawkeye Barton returned to the Avengers. At this point, all the original Avengers members are gathered together. These members include the Hulk, who was once scared away by 100,000 lickers in New York, the Captain of the United States who almost fainted after Wesker sucked out a lot of blood, and Iron, who was almost scared to death by predators twice. Man, as well as Barton and Thor, who also had their blood drawn by the Umbrella Company. Except for Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, who has not yet had contact with the Umbrella Company, everyone else has already had interactions with the Umbrella Company. Definitely, the reason Natasha Romanoff has no connection with Umbrella is simple. It's simply because Lin Yu's system didn't take a fancy to her genes. At the moment, on board the S.H.I.E.L.D. space carrier, the Avengers are cleaning up the space carrier that has become a mess due to Hulk's destruction. During this chaos, Phil Coulson was also unfortunately killed by Loki. And Hulk also jumped off the space carrier and disappeared. In the first confrontation, Loki achieved absolute victory. Everyone in the Avengers felt heavy. Everything seems to be developing in a not-so-good direction. Moreover, after the battle, Loki disappeared from everyone's sight. Until now, the Avengers have not found where Loki is. At the same time, New York, the rooftop of the Stark Industrial Building. Loki is making final adjustments to a machine of huge amounts with Dr. Eric, who has been controlled by him. At the center of this machine is the Tesseract that Loki snatched from S.H.I.E.L.D. As long as this machine is debugged, the power in Tesseract will be completely stimulated and the portal will be opened. And the Chitauri army has already assembled on the other side of the universe. When the time comes, the Chitauri army will arrive. And Loki will become the master of the earth. Loki has already begun to imagine the moment when he becomes the king of all people on earth. At that time, he will wear the most gorgeous robes and a crown, stand on the tallest building in mankind, and swear his identity. But, that's when, in the sky, a red and gold figure suddenly appeared from a distance. Flying everywhere, Loki's expression changed slightly, but then a smile appeared on his face. Unexpectedly, these people could find their place so quickly. But that doesn't matter, they have no time to stop themselves. Iron Man Tony Stark slowly fell from the roof of the Stark Industrial Building and took off his steel battle suit using the tools on the roof. His steel battle suit is somewhat worn out and must be replaced with the latest battle suit. But the new steel battle suit must take time to activate. Tony had to hold Loki off for a few minutes. At the moment, Tony took off his steel battle suit and slowly walked behind a bar in the rooftop room of Stark Industrial Building. While pouring the wine, he put the bracelet that controlled the new generation steel battle suit on his wrist. And Tony also chatted with Loki. However, it was Loki who spoke first. "Are you here to show me mercy?" Loki walked over slowly, holding a psychic scepter. Tony, on the other hand, said calmly, "No, I'm here to scare you." These words made the smile on Loki's face brighter. "Scaring me? But you took off your steel battle suit." Loki chuckled and said. Tony Bai Ching calmly said, "I don't think there is any use in wearing a steel battle suit. After all, you are holding a Terminator-type scepter in your hand." Loki didn't understand Tony's words, but that didn't stop him from showing off. Loki's favorite thing is to show off. He slowly came to the huge amounts of floor-to-ceiling windows, looked at the sky outside, and said, "I know you are stalling for time, but it is useless, the Chidori army is coming. No one can stop it." Speaking of the Chidori army, two figures suddenly flashed in Tony's mind. A crazy-looking monster whose whole body seemed to have been skinned, and another whose whole body was covered with dark green scales, whose claws were as sharp as razor blades, came and went without a trace. The traceless monster. They should be considered an army of biochemical monsters. Between the two armies, who is more powerful? Thinking of this, Tony's eyes suddenly lit up. If the Chidori army really invades the Earth, will the man from Umbrella Company just sit back and watch? Obviously, the other party couldn't let Loki run wild on his territory. At this moment, Tony suddenly sneered. Maybe Chu doesn't know much about it. Loki was slightly confused and said, "Oh, what don't you understand? It's not too late to learn more when my Chidori army takes over this place." Tony said again, "What you don't know is that we also have an army, and it is much more terrifying than your army." "What army?" Loki was slightly startled. Tony would say that they have the Hulk. Shouldn't the strongest people on Earth be the so-called Avengers? Why did Tony say they also have an army? Those backward United States soldiers are really nothing compared to the Chidori army. At the moment, Tony had a weird smile on his face and said slowly, "We have Umbrella Company's biochemical army. When you see it, you will be scared to death." Biochemical army, Umbrella Company, what is this? Loki suddenly became annoyed. These strange names were probably made up by Tony Stark in order to delay time. But, at this moment, Tony's purpose of stalling for time has been achieved. Behind him, a gold and red column suddenly flew out from the secret door on the wall. And locked the positioning bracelet on Tony's hand. In less than 2 seconds, Tony transforms into Iron Man again. And this steel battle suit, Zongjing, is the 7th generation battle suit developed by Toten. The battle is about to break out. At the same time, Dr. Eric, whose mind was controlled by Loki's psychic scepter, also completed the final adjustments to the machine that inspired the Tesseract. A blue beam of light instantly shot out of the Tesseract and shot straight into the sky. In the sky, a dark blue portal slowly opened. And it is still expanding slowly. Immediately afterwards, a group of Chidori warriors riding in flight machines quickly poured in from the portal. The Chidori army has officially arrived. Iron Man Tony Stark, who had just hit Loki with a blaster, looked sharply in his eyes, rose into the sky, and rushed towards the Chidori soldiers near the portal. In the distance, a shield fighter jet also quickly arrived on the battlefield. Captain Steve of the United States, Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, and Hawkeye Barton, who has regained consciousness, also joined the battlefield. But, at this moment, Umbrella Corporation's Hive underground base in Raccoon City. Lin Yu was still waiting quietly in the virus laboratory. The reminder from the Red Queen had already reached his ears, and he already knew what happened in New York. At the same time, just as the Chidori soldiers passed through the portal, the system prompts also sounded at the same time. Ding, the Chidori soldier gene of alien life has been detected, which can provide a lot of experience points for the host's biochemical technology tree. Please get it as soon as possible. But, looking at Alice, whose body was still shaking not long after being injected with the T-virus, Lin Yu had no time to care about the arrival of the Chitauri army. Lin Yu is more concerned about Alice's safety than the arrival of Chitauri. But the integration of T-virus and Alice was faster than Lin Yu and Alexia imagined, and the integration was also quite perfect. It only took less than an hour from the time Alice went in and was injected with the T-virus until Alice's body began to gradually become calmer. At the moment, in the airtight room at the back of the virus laboratory, Alice, who was lying on the bed, suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyeballs all turned black. Like a black pearl, it exudes a breathtaking black light. The moment Alice opened her eyes, a system prompt suddenly sounded in Lin Yu's mind. Ding, the gene of the perfect integrator of the T-virus has been detected, please host to obtain it as soon as possible. This system prompt made Lin Yu's slightly nervous mood calm down instantly. Since the system says that Alice and the T-virus are perfectly integrated, there shouldn't be any problems. Lin Yu still trusts the system's judgment. But Alexia didn't know that Alice had perfectly integrated the T-virus. Seeing Alice wake up, she hurriedly observed the equipment next to her. The instrument in front of her can detect various indicators of Alice's body. But, looking at the numbers on the instrument in front of him, even Alexia, the creator of the T-virus, couldn't help but be a little surprised. Now, all the indicators of Alice's body are far beyond those of normal people. It completely exceeded Alexia's prediction. After more than 10 seconds, Alexia finally slowly raised her head. There was still a slightly shocked look on her face. Then, he said to Lin Yu, "Boss, Alice's integrate should have been successful. Her various physical indicators have exceeded expectations." Alexia used the word, should. Obviously, Alice's current situation cannot be completely determined just from the instrument. At this moment, in the airtight room, Alice had already gotten out of bed and stood up. The blackness in her eyes gradually faded away, returning to their original appearance again. She raised her head and looked at Lin Yu outside the glass. A smile suddenly appeared on her face. There were some tears in the smile. She was actually quite scared, fearing that if she failed to integrate, she would no longer be able to stay with Lin Yu. But, judging from the current situation, it seems to have been successful. Alice looked at her hands, then suddenly clenched her fists. She felt that she seemed to have inexhaustible strength now. It is as if there is countless energy stored in the body, which can be mobilized at any time to make oneself omnipotent. This is an illusion after the body becomes stronger. It's almost like Lin Yu just obtained the biochemical technology tree. She is not omnipotent, but after integrating the T-virus, she did become stronger. And it has become much stronger. Alice moved forward slowly and came to the glass. She didn't rush to ask for it, because she also knew that her current situation was not necessarily stable. Perhaps, Alexia needs to check before coming out from here. However, at this time, Lin Yu suddenly said to Alexia, "Open the door, the integration has been successful." Lin Yu's words made Alexia slightly stunned. Successful, she wasn't sure. How could the boss be so sure? Lin Yu nodded slowly and said again, "Trust me, let's go." Lin Yu's tone was quite certain. Although Alexia was still a little confused, she had to obey Lin Yu's order. The glass door was opened. Alice inside was also a little surprised, but she could no longer stop missing Lin Yu in her heart. During this hour, during the process of integrating the T-virus, she never stopped missing Lin Yu. She had been afraid and regretted, but most of all she was reluctant to let go of Lin Yu. And at the moment, after regaining her new life, all the emotions in her heart burst out. After Alice came out, she threw herself into Lin Yu's arms. But she obviously hasn't realized how strong her body is now. Even though Lin Yu's body had become very strong, he almost stumbled to the ground when this sudden delicate body rushed towards him. However, fortunately, Lin Yu has gained more power than Alice through several advancements in the biochemical technology tree, so he was able to catch Alice's body. But after a few seconds, Alice hurriedly left Lin Yu's body. She has never had such close contact with her boss. Her cheeks turned red with embarrassment. A few minutes later, Lin Yu walked out of the virus laboratory. "When I came out, I still had a test tube in my hand." Alice's genes were definitely easy to obtain. Alice, on the other hand, was in no hurry to come out of the virus laboratory. Because Alexia needs to check her body to make sure she is safe and sound, and also needs to collect some data. By this time, the battle in New York had begun. Lin Yu no longer has time to stay there. Holding the test tube containing Alice's genes, Lin Yu hurried to his office. Subsequently, there was a flash of light. Alice's genes disappeared into Lin Yu's hands. Alice's genes are very strong. Even, he is much better than the Captain of the United States. Gene name, T-Virus Perfect Integrator Gene Alice. Gene strength, 4 stars. Available experience points, 500 points. Gene contains ability ranking. Strength 100, Agility 100, Intelligence 100, Special Psychokinesis 200 inches. Compared to the 450 attribute points of the Captain of the United States, Alice has just integrated the T-Virus, and the total attributes in the gene have reached 500 points. Almost catching up to Thor's attributes. And, one attribute in particular stands out. That's psychokinesis. Seeing this attribute, Lin Yu couldn't help but get excited. With this psychokinesis attribute, it basically means that the T-Virus developed by Alexia should be the same as the virus in the previous Resident Evil movie. In the previous movies, Alice's strongest point was also her psychokinesis. After the light flashed, Lin Yu's biochemical technology tree also underwent huge amounts of changes. The main experience value instantly increased by 500 points. The total has reached 2,370 points. There are only 630 points left before the advanced value of 3,000 points. And now, the genes that Lin Yu already knows but have not yet collected include Loki's genes, Chidori's genes, and the Hulk's genes. Lin Yu has not yet had time to collect these 3 genes. Moreover, the strength of these 3 genes should not be low. If you get them all, the possibility of the main body being promoted to level 3 is very high. By then, new biochemical monsters will appear. Lin Yu is looking forward to this. After this upgrade, Lin Yu's body has also undergone great changes. Although the appearance is still the same, the strength and speed of the body have also improved again. Moreover, Lin Yu also felt that there seemed to be something extra in his brain. It was as if there was a ball of air slowly squirming in his brain. This air mass should be the legendary psychokinesis. However, Lin Yu has no way to control it now. But Lin Yu is not in a hurry. You already have psychokinesis, and it's only a matter of time before you master how to use it. Now, the most important thing is to deal with Chidori's matter first. To get familiar with and master the use of psychokinesis, you probably have to wait until you have time to practice it slowly. In addition, the super hunter in the biological cultivation tank in his mind has also undergone some changes. However, Lin Yu didn't summon it either. The change of hunter should not be used in this war. It would take at least 2 days to clone the new hunters into an army, which was too late. And now, a total earned army of 500,000 armored lickers and super predators is enough to handle the coming battle. So, now, get out there. Lin Yu stood quietly in front of the big screen in his office. He spoke slowly and gave the order to the Red Queen. All dispatch, target, New York. Lin Yu gave an order, and the entire Raccoon City seemed to come alive. The large troops that had been prepared for a long time started to move at the same time. Hundreds of transport planes and helicopters slowly took off. On the ground, countless black transport trucks formed several long black queues, heading rapidly towards New York. All underground trains are also transporting the biochemical army to New York. Umbrella Company, the entire army is dispatched. And at the moment, Lin Yu stood quietly in front of the big screen in his office. Looking at the satellite and surveillance images on the screen, the corners of Lin Yu's mouth curled up slightly. This time, my goal is not just to defeat those Chidori. Instead, leave more corpses of Chidori soldiers on the earth. At the moment, New York battlefield, as the portal opened wider and wider, more and more Chidori soldiers came through the portal. Countless Chidori soldiers, driving tricycle-like flight machines, were rampaging. The entire downtown of New York City was turned into a sea of flames. Countless pedestrians fled in all directions. But countless people died under the Chidori's indiscriminate attacks. Countless citizens hiding in the building watched in horror as more and more alien soldiers in the sky attacked humans everywhere, crying in their arms. There is absolutely nothing they can do about such a tragic situation. They even dare not take to the streets, let alone look for their relatives. At this moment, a golden and red figure suddenly rose into the sky. Iron Man suddenly appeared in people's sight. Several shockwaves suddenly erupted from his hand, killing several Chitauri soldiers in front of him. Several rows of small missiles suddenly appeared on his steel battle suit, killing more Chitauri soldiers in an instant. At this moment, people who saw Iron Man cheered wildly and loudly. They are saved. Iron Man is their hero. Elsewhere in New York City, the same thing is happening. The Captain of the United States, standing on the roof of the car, arranging the New York police, is like the great savior of mankind. Eagle 140 Eyes Barton and Black Widow Natasha Romanoff were on the ground rescuing humans on a bus. Everyone who was rescued was grateful to them. But, as the portal expands, more terrifying Chitauri combat units appear. It was a huge, reptile-like monster. That monster is one of Chitauri's most powerful soldiers, the Leviathan. Leviathan possesses flight ability, and can eject Chitauri soldiers one by one from his body, like a mobile fortress. What's even more terrifying is that the monster's body is quite hard and can run rampant between buildings. Countless buildings collapsed, and thousands of New Yorkers died under heavy objects falling from the sky. The situation on the battlefield took a turn for the worse in an instant. But, fortunately, Thor and the Hulk also joined the battlefield at this time. The Hulk's powerful combat power burst out instantly. Even the huge Leviathan is no match for the Hulk. But, there is only one Hulk after all. Thor, there is only one. As the portal grew larger, more Leviathan beasts came to the earth through the portal. And, in addition to the Leviathan beast, the number of Chitauri soldiers is also increasing. The Avengers team became in a hurry again. The entire New York City was in complete chaos. After all, there are only a few members of the Avengers team, which is not enough compared to the huge number of Chitauri soldiers. More and more New York citizens died at the hands of Chitauri soldiers. More fear arises in people's hearts. Their hero, their great savior, could not save them. But, that's when, in the sky, there suddenly came huge amounts of roaring sounds, from far to near. The earth also began to tremble slightly. New York citizens on the edge of the battlefield suddenly discovered that countless black dots suddenly flew in the sky outside New York City. Those black spots are getting closer and closer. Finally, people saw clearly what those black spots were. Hundreds of helicopters roared past the sky. The scene is quite spectacular. Some citizens with better eyesight discovered that those helicopters were all stamped with the word, sudden. It was a red and white umbrella-shaped pattern. People are naturally quite familiar with this logo. Umbrella Company, the world's largest monopoly company, its market value is dozens of times that of Stark Industries, the largest company in New York. Even because of the Umbrella Company, people gathered to form a city. The name of that city is Raccoon City. As the helicopter flew over, people also saw several long lines of black transport convoys on the ground. Each vehicle has the same logo printed on it as the helicopter. Those motorcades have no end in sight. But those convoys did not fly overhead like helicopters, but stopped at the edge of New York City. The car door opened, and countless monsters came out of the car. People were horrified to find that those monsters were somewhat similar to the monsters that appeared in New York City before. However, the originally exposed brains on their heads were blocked by their skulls, and their bodies were all covered with thick bone armor. In addition to the bone armor, there were also many sharp bone spurs on the monsters' bodies and joints, like daggers, glowing with cold light. Definitely, this is nothing. On the four claws of those monsters, there was a faint flash of thunder. The army of 200,000 Thunder Lickers finally appeared in the public eye again. They gathered at the edge of New York City and lined up neatly, like a well-trained army. When they saw those Thunder Lickers, New York citizens suddenly discovered that those aliens falling from the sky did not seem so scary. Compared with these biochemical monsters from Umbrella Company, those Chitauri soldiers actually look a little cute. Those Thunder Lickers are the real terror. Although many New Yorkers have seen lickers on the internet or in person. However, it cannot prevent people from having great fear in their hearts. The bright red muscle tissue, disgusting tongue, and sharp claws are like a group of real demons. And, not only that, Just when 200,000 thunder lickers began to line up on the edge of New York, billowing dust appeared again on the distant horizon. People on the ground also felt the slight tremor of the earth again. A dark green figure ran from a distance. This is the first time these New York citizens have seen them. They were a group of creatures covered in dark green scales, with bodies that looked like lizards walking upright. The most frightening thing is their sharp sickle-like front claws. Just looking at it seems to make both eyes scratched. The 300,000 Super Hunter Army took the underground train from the Umbrella Company's Hive underground base and went directly to the secret base in New York City. Then, running wildly, joined together with 200,000 thunder lickers. The 500,000 biochemical army has finally been assembled. On board the SHIELD space carrier, Nick Fury also used satellite surveillance to see the 500,000 biochemical army gathering on the edge of New York City. However, unlike before, this time, when seeing the Umbrella Company dispatching such a large biochemical army, Nick Fury actually felt a little lucky. Fortunately, there is such a powerful organization as the Umbrella Corporation on Earth. Otherwise, just the Avengers might not be a match for the Chitauri army. However, even Nick Fury did not expect that the biochemical power possessed by the Umbrella Company would be so huge. A total of 500,000 were neatly arranged there. From the big screen, Nick Fury could feel the terrifying killing intent. And at the moment, Umbrella Company's Hive underground base in Raccoon City, in Lin Yu's office. Lin Yu stood quietly in front of the big screen, looking at the biochemical army he had formed during this period, with a hint of excitement on his face. All the previous actions were just small tests. But this time, the real power of the Umbrella Company is fully displayed in the eyes of the world for the first time. Let's start. Kill as much as you want, Lin Yu said silently. The 500,000 biochemical army, after Lin Yu gave the order, erupted into a roar that shook the earth. The Thunder Licker and the Super Hunter, after roaring crazily to the sky, turned into a violent huge wave and headed towards the center of the New York battlefield. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.